good evening, loyal opposition. Oh my goodness, it is January the 14th, and it is 7 o'clock, and we are up and going. We are excited, we are expectant, we are ready. We are ready. And Diana Seeley, no, what am I saying? It's not Diana Seeley. It's Tracy Barrow. Hi, Tracy. I believe I met you yesterday. We connected yesterday, which was so amazing to see everybody. Good night to the panel and all patrons of the soil. I'm praying for Barbados and the entire world population. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Diana. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Diana, it was on at 6:04. Good evening, Diana. Tracy was on at 4:23 p.m. Rai Quelly, Sawubona. Yes, yes. Welcome, welcome, Raik, loyal daughter 66. How are you? How are you? So good to see you. Sir Alfred. Good evening, Sir Alfred. My goodness. Llewellyn. Llewellyn, am I saying it correctly? He made sure that he corrected me when I saw him yesterday. I'm hoping that I did it right. Llewellyn. I feel. Hello. Tony Paris, Clive Osborne, good evening, everybody. Good evening, blessing, blessed night. Monica Inns, blessed night. Marlene Seeley, how are you guys? Monica, oh my goodness, hello. Yes, Llewellyn is saying, I finally got it right. You see, this is what happens when we get to meet together, when we get to meet face to face, right? So he was able to let me know, listen, don't mispronounce my name again. I am Llewellyn. And I got it. Kamar, sorry you weren't there yesterday, Kamar. Oh God. Oh my goodness. Good evening, Jack Murphy, Marvin Allen. Yes, 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 Marvin Ali. Yes, yes. I believe, there are lots more people who would have come out for the march yesterday. Let's talk about the march a bit. Marlene and Queen McQueenis and Sharon O. Guys, I just want to say that I believe that while there are people thinking that we should have had more, etc., I know that a lot of people were working. I also know that there's still a lot of people who are with us, but they are a little timid in coming out. I met a teacher just as we were waiting in the Massacre Park who said to me, Mrs. Weeks, I would like to come out, but I'm afraid. I'm a public servant and I don't want to be seen out there, right? Yeah. So, but all in all, it wasn't bad at all. It was 150 or a little bit over 150 persons. And considering that we had stopped for over 6 weeks and we were able to still get back our crowd and even a little bit more than what we had before, I think, I'm not sure, but, I want to thank everybody for the work that they put in, and that was the beauty of the whole thing. So let's just start at the beginning. Those placards. Mark, this person here, Mark Clark. He was one of those who went down to Unity Workers Union and they made 70 placards. You saw those placards, how well they were constructed, and just what they put on the placards. Isn't that amazing? 70 placards, and they were all used up. All used up, you know. I mean, there were people were coming for their placards, then they had them color coded, those that were dealing with a digital ID, and then those placards that were dealing with the remote PM, and then those that were dealing with the other issue there. Why is it leaving my mind? I'm reading your comments. And getting the whole issue with the check gate, and so people were able to pick what they wanted, right? And I thought that was wonderfully done. Mark Clark and CG. Is CG on tonight? I want to big up CG, because that's really what it's all about. That's the spirit of the whole thing. where it is not centered around one individual, right? People have ideas. You are the ones who write me and tell me you want the march again, and you want, and so we went ahead and started it. And here, CG and Mark, and I think there was one other person I can't remember who turned up, and they carried a, you know what it is to make 70 placards. Now that's something that good night, CG. I was just talking about you. You know, that's an area of the marches that we can just, we know that they will, CG will take care of that and her team. And Mark will join up with her. And I think Gelbis went one day, I can't remember. You know, Dave and I, we went for moral support. We can't write. I can't write the way CG writes so well. And you know, I can't do all of that. But we give moral support. We turn up there. Kimar turn up there as well. We work as a team, and that's it, guys. It's a team effort, you know. Everybody working together. Mr. Franklin being so gracious in loaning his place to us so we can go there. And in the day, it's open up, it's safe, it's clean, and yeah. Oh, Natasha C, if you're on tonight, we want to big you up as well, because you went, and you went there, and you were you also helped to prepare those 70, not 7, not 17, 70 placards that were well done, well executed. You know, they didn't fall apart on the road. And I loved it. Listen, this woman CG is so creative. And I told her that's her thing. And you know, that's it. And then, and Mark is saying it's all for a good cause, a great cause. Yes, it is. And we are Barbadians, and that's what it means. That's what it means, really. And you know, at the end of it, before I go to the end, I want to also mention this woman that doesn't like for me to mention her name, but she's Lisa Niles. I'm mentioning her name because I know she's not listening now. She's at class. But Lisa is, she's the main person that have been pushing out our posters. And this woman, I could send her whatever, she's able to capture the feeling of it, and she pushes it out, and captures it, and you know, and designs it. And I wanna big up Lisa Niles tonight. I wanna also big up those in the diaspora who gave money, who sent money via PayPal. We want to big you up. I know you don't want me to mention names and so on, but I want to big you up tonight. I want everybody who contributed. There's a man, his name is Kevin. I won't say his full name, but Kevin, I mean, just religiously brings the water, the ice, and the cooler. And we actually had the cooler since we had Kimar's event, because he did it again. He brought his cooler and the ice and whatever the drinks in it, because that's what Kevin does. He knows that's what he does. So you know, it's like when you're planning these things, you don't have to think about that part because it plugs in, and that's you know, this is how Barbados is going. We're going to get back the country. It is through the people. I don't know if we're getting it right now. We understand that we can't wait on a politician, whether BD, PQ, whatever. We can't wait on them because they, you know, the problem is that a lot of them have ulterior motives. A lot of these people are jobless and they're trying to get a job. They see this as an opportunity for mobility. Not everybody, because we can't really paint everybody with the same brush, but majority of them. And that's why what we need in Barbados, the salvation of Barbados, the change that we're looking for in Barbados. Let me use a non-church word before you all come at me. It's really, it is really the people of Barbados. It is us. It's you and I doing that part that we need to do. And that is what happened out there on Saturday. That is exactly what happened. Kinaz is on here. He gave, you know, we use his truck. Um, it's just a combination of people. Dave took care of all the technicals, and play the music on the truck. And then when you look on the truck, look at the people, look at the unity that we see there. Look at the unity. And that's what I want to talk about. I want you to see what I am saying. And guys, I see Clive Osborne is saying is like and sharing. That's what I would like for you to do, guys. Those of you, there are 278 of you. Wow, a lot of you on very early. I'm asking you to share. I'm asking you to click the thumbs up because that's how you find videos. One gentleman, he says, I was just scouting around and on YouTube, and then it appeared, and it's gonna appear because you click the thumbs up. So look for the thumbs up. I know we have some elderly folks who are watching, but ask your grandchildren or somebody to show you what to do, right? And you can subscribe to the channel. On the other side, you'll see a little bell, right? And you can subscribe, right? Thank you, Kamar. Thank you, Kamar. And Kamar, I thank all those people who tell me, Marcia, don't forget your disclaimer. Thank you so much. And one day when we have, enough funds, then we'll be able to hire somebody else on here who will be able to do all the work in the back for me, right? So that we don't have to work so hard. Because sometimes we're doing many different things at the same time. But I wanted to thank Bungo Lights. Bungo has a restaurant. And Bungo, when he comes on the truck on a Saturday morning, is a very important morning for Bungo. He leaves his restaurant, so he would have to get up very early and do preparation. He has an ITIL restaurant right there on Subtle Street, right? I think it's Subtle Street. And food is very, very good. You should support him. Whenever you go to town, go and support Bungo, please. And he comes on the truck and he gives up his time leaving his restaurant to speak on the truck. He stays the entire time. He's filming. He's involved. Then you have Lumumba, who locks up, closes up his store to come down. That is the kind of thing, guys, that is going to change the country. We could meet and we could criticize and we could say what we don't like and what we like, right? We could do that. But what is really going to change a country? It's when you and we stop asking what Barbados can do for us and ask ourselves, what can I do for Barbados? What can I do for Barbados? Ask yourself that question. Everybody, I'm asking myself that question. And it's all of you who came out. There was such a sense of unity. There was a reverend there. And so good to see the reverend climbing up on the truck, Pastor Ferdinand. He's such a blessing. No airs about him. He's walking with the police. He's talking. He's involved. Look at that. Then Winston is there. And Winston, comes and he let me know what the police is saying, the concerns the police has. He's speaking on the truck. He brings people, and Winston is so involved. Right? All these people are involved. I know we had Joseph Cadogan came and I wanted for him to speak, but because of how the police was rushing us, we couldn't do much. Joseph, I hope you're still here by on the so that we can do something with you and you'll be able to come on this program and do a presentation. So I really wanted to take the time to talk with you tonight and to say to you that your support and for your country, your love for your country is coming over. You're feeling it. I hear the people. I remember speaking to a couple persons, and there are two men that I spoke with. And one of them is a little younger, probably in his 50s, late 40s. And he came and he said, I'm happy to be here. I wanted to see more people, he said. I would have loved to see more. And he was just asking Barbadians to show support and love for their country. And I could tell he was crying. He was crying as he was talking to me, And there were other people like that, and they were saying that we need Barbadians to stand up. And I kept encouraging them and said, well, you're here. You're standing up. You're here. We're starting somewhere, right? And so I want to encourage everybody here that we do something. Ask yourself. I know some of you have tried before, especially those in the diaspora, and you were shut down. You were told to move away from here with that, or nobody wants to listen to your ideas, and so on. I want to say to you, take those ideas up again and brush them off, and let us roll our sleeves up, and see what we can do. Put our heads together, and our hands together, and put our hands to the plow, and let's see what we can do for our country. I think at this point, this is what is necessary. I got calls and messages from people that who said to me, when the last show you guys had on Friday, after Mr. Nigel Newton did such a brilliant piece, brilliant piece of education there for us, you know, and after he did that, a lot of people, they wrote me, they were so emotional listening to Nigel Newton. And then when we went on to talk about the hospital, people were saying they were crying. One man, he said his wife was crying uncontrollably, listening and hearing what is happening in Barbados. Yeah. And so I know that the message is getting out, but I want us to move from just the talking stage. When we started this journey 6 months ago, it's going into 6 months. One of the things that we said is that we don't want to be. This is not a brass tacks. Remember, we said that we really want to be that change we are looking for. And yes, in order to discuss a lot of the issues, we have to criticize what is presently happening. But you and I, we know that it doesn't depend. It doesn't matter sometimes who is in power. The unique thing that we have at this time is that we don't have an opposition that would help, to make sure that the ruling party, the ruling government, stay within the lines. We don't have that. And that is why we're doing this work. We have become the opposition, the 280,000 of us in Barbados. We have become that voice of opposition. And my hope is that we become a non-partisan voice of opposition, that we're not pushing any particular party. One of the stories that really, really touched me, Heathcliff. Hi, good night, Heathcliff. Yes, we need more Bajans to join the work. One of the stories that touched me, and I should have gotten the name of this gentleman. He's retired, so we know that he's an older gentleman. He was having a pain. I think it could have been in his right hand, but he still came out. He was struggling, but he came out and he marched with us. And at the end of the march, we played the national anthem, and we normally play the anthem also at the beginning of the march. Okay. And at the end we played it, and sometimes we would play it in the middle too, but because we were late in starting, then the police was moving us along, and we couldn't stop to play it, where we normally play it on Broad Street there. But we played it at the end, and he came over to me again, and he was crying, and he said to me, Mrs. Weeks, I have to thank you. He said, all my life I've been singing and playing the national anthem. And it wasn't until I started watching the show and coming to these marches that I understand fully the anthem, and that it has moved me in such a way that it makes me cry when I listen to it. And when he said that to me, I tell you, I started crying. And I started crying because I remember that one of the reasons I started to talk about the national anthem was because I wanted Barbadians to move the patriotism from their head to the heart. I wanted more Barbadians because they're Barbadians who are patriotic in their hearts. But I wanted more Barbadians to move the patriotism from their head to their heart. Right? And you know, when he said that to me, oh my goodness, I started crying too. I started crying. I said, oh my God. I started crying. And as he was speaking to me, there was a little lady there, and she had a little something, could have been paper folded up. And she unfolded and unfolded that paper. And I was watching her at the corner of my eye, and she's unfolding the paper. And out of it, she took out, it could have been $7 to give me for the march. Oh Lord, I started to bawl some more. And then people were just coming up and putting $10 and $20 in my hand and to cover expenses for the march. And I think we collected either $893 were collected on the spot yesterday. And you know how things are hard in Barbados. Things are tough in this country. But yet still, this little lady, she had the $7 and she had it wrapped up, folded up. And it could have been, I don't know if it's a handkerchief or if it's a piece of paper that she folded it up and she took it out and gave it to me. Oh Lordy. The the tear ducts just opened up and I started bawling. You know, and that stayed with me the entire evening. I was just so quiet and so pensive. I was just thinking about everything. And it made me start to think about Bussa. And every Bajan knows who Bussa is, right? And he led one of the rebellions that we know of. I don't believe it was only one rebellion, but that might have been the largest one. And I think it's 1816. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I wanted to look up the date again before I come on. But started to think about Bussa. And Bussa, for me, even since I've been here, I love Bussa. I'm a warrior. I love Bussa. I love the fact that Bussa saw what was happening to his people at the time and to himself, right? And Honorable Bussa decided he was going to do something about it. And that's why we're on. That's why Mr. Franklin comes on. Mr. Franklin was in the army, the Barbados Army. He's a general. He understands how things work, and he understands. He's a doer. He's a doer. And that's really a big part of why I respect Mr. Franklin, honestly. Not because he's in the waiting room. My husband will tell you I respect him a lot because he's not a talker. He's a doer. And that's what Bussa was. Bussa wasn't in no long talk, no hope of long talk. Bussa said, listen, we're gonna burn it down. We want our freedom. Yeah, and that's what was happening yesterday. And as I saw that little lady, taking out the little money and the people coming and so on, and then somebody said, you think these marches make sense? You think we should bother? Because I thought thousands would come and they didn't come. And I said to the person, it must have been a male, it was a male that came up at that time. And I said to him, but think about Bussa. Did he win the rebellion? Didn't slavery continue for a good, about 16 years after? Correct me on my dates, guys, if I'm wrong. I think slavery continued a whole 16 years after, Yes? So the Bussa was wrong in staging the rebellion? Look back, think about it. I want us to think. Was Bussa wrong? It is because of people like Bussa and Nanny Gregg and You know, all of our ancestors, why we're here today, they decided that they were not going to take the slavery. You know, and they expect us. Actually, they expect us to fight like they fought. They expect us to do that. So whenever you go out and people say, well, you know, is that all necessary? Why are you bothering with all of that? And it's not going to do anything. I was told, somebody told me, Mr. Franklin is getting ready. I can see it. Let me know if he's ready. He's ready. Okay. Good night, Mr. Franklin.
Hello, good night. It's good to be here. I just um got back home. I had to go and collect my wife. She was overseas, so I just got
Ah,
in. So
and you're on, and you're on, and you still find yourself. Please tell her good night on behalf of the opposition. Please tell her good night.
I will, Han. Marcia says good night, Han.
I hope she enjoyed herself. You know, I know, but she wasn't with you, but you know, she still. I hope she still enjoyed herself.
She was with her mother.
But you know, Mr. Franklin, I'm sure you heard what I was talking about. You know, after
Yeah,
you left, and you had to leave for the doctor. You had your doctor's appointment that you pushed back, and I want people need to understand what is happening and the sacrifice that they are making as well, and to recognize what is going on at this time in Barbados. But I was talking about Bossa, and I wanted them to understand, you know, that that Bossa was right. Bossa was right in standing up, and he did not. He actually didn't have everybody with him, if I remember the story right. If they told us,
now, Buster was not the hero, but Buster was the black man. So current people made him the hero. The hero was a man called Washington Pitt Franklin. But he was mulatto. So when they were trying to find black heroes, they used Buster instead. But Buster was working for Franklin. You
mm,
know, Buster was not the general. He was more like a lieutenant. And
ah,
you had other people who did not participate, like the people at Mount Wilton. They did not fight, and they were all given money. When the owner of Mount Wilton um, died, he put in his will that they should get a certain amount of money, and the family refused to pay them. It took them almost 40 years to get the money.
yeah,
Eventually, they got some money, and they moved to Rock Hall in St. Thomas, and they bought the land in Rock Hall and they set up what people now call the Forest Free Village. The only
mm-hmm,
thing is that Forest Free Village is not located anywhere near where the people claim it is. Where this monument is actually the glebe.
mm-hmm,
Rock Hall was on the other side of the road, and none of the people got the land on the broad road. I did the research, so they made
mm-hmm,
a mistake. But yet still, they try to create history to make us feel good. I felt good when I heard that Rock Hall was the first free village and stuff too, until I did my own research.
mm,
And when I saw the house, the slave, what they call the slave hut that was in Rock Hall, it wasn't a slave hut either. It was the house built by the indentured servants. They bought the same type of house that they built in England
mm-hmm,
and Wales. And they bought them here. The slaves used to build black. They used to build wrong houses with a pointed roof. These
mm-hmm,
and what made me do the research is I went to Ireland and I was in my room in the evening because when I go to these capitals I don't leave the room at night because I don't know what to expect. So I was in my room and I was watching this period documentary and it showed. But I said, "That look the house but by me." And when I realized that, so I went to the archives and I did some digging. It turned out that those what we call slave huts in Barbados are not slave huts. But the
mm,
historians got it wrong and they're too ashamed to admit it now.
yes,
It's a bad thing when you could mislead the people. The same thing with crop over. Crop over didn't start back in the slave days. Crop over started in 1974.
yeah. But
Yeah.
this is why I want to cut you. But as you made that point, I think it's an important hard for me to say something here about the history that this I doubt very much this history that they're teaching us that only the passive slaves came to Barbados. I just don't believe it, Mr. Franklin,
No,
because
no, mm-mm.
I
All
don't
the
believe
no,
it.
no. The problem was that in Jamaica you had hills that you can
Yeah,
run to. There was no place for the local for the people to run. You're gonna do run, and people can see you for the next few miles up the road. They're gonna get you. They'll be riding horses. You'll be running. So
yes.
it wasn't that the Bajans were passive, even though that might have been the design. It is that your desire for freedom would force you to do something. But you're gonna do something stupid that you
Mm-hmm.
can go and run away. Like the guy at Mount Wilton who he killed the owner because the owner was abusing him. People said, oh, he found out about the will, and he killed the people so that the people will get the money. It wasn't that. The owner took him to his room every night
Mm-hmm.
and put his wife to live at another plantation. So Joseph, the guy that the slave, became the
Yeah.
wife, and he cut his throat. And Joseph's trial, they said Joseph said the master cut at him, and he cut it back up. So he actually slit the master's throat, and that is why initially the place on Rock Hall used to be called Cutthroat Village because they actually cut the. But they can call it Rock Hall. They make Cutthroat Village all the time, but it's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Penny Hole, change the names to get them more pleasing. But it wasn't any thing that he tried to protect the other slaves from. No, he wanted to revenge because what a lot of people do not understand or what they do not know is that homosexuality is not a Russian thing. I mean, a black people thing. It is imported from the Caucasus, Russia and England, all those places. So, in some African languages that the slaves spoke in Barbados, there was no word for homosexuality. It didn't exist in that part of the world. So, because if it existed, there would have been a word for it. There was no word in their language for it. It didn't exist. It has been introduced to black people. I know they want to introduce it to the world and calling it a human right.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't exist among black people before. The black people that were brought from Africa over to Barbados did not know what homosexuality was.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't in their nature. It wasn't. They didn't see it in the wild. They didn't see it in their upbringing.
Yeah.
They came here, and what a way it was also push, and it was pushed in India because you imagine the British conquered India, and you know how far your wife was away from you. So the only thing, and they didn't have female soldiers in those days. So the only thing you had out there in the trenches was another fella. So the fella used him too. So that's why it became so widespread among the British.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we come
But
and
you
adopt it now.
adopt but all of this history is so important to know who we are, and I'm glad that you spoke up about us not being passive, and even about that, some of the things that they're pushing, right? Actually someone is saying, they use that method, homosexuality, to to subdue the male slaves.
Yes.
So the enslaved, the male enslaved people, or ancestors. So it's good to understand the history so that we know where we're going. And I think I would say to people, those of you who are watching, I want to encourage you to go back and take a look at Bossa, take a look at our ancestors, take a look. This is Errol Barrow month, right? As much as what they would like for us to forget about him, but we're not going to do that. His birthday is on the 21st, and we're not going to do that. I mean, I for me, this whole thing with Barbados is so real. We have our dog. You call your dog Snow, right? My dog is called Bossa. Okay, my dog, his first name is Bossa and his middle name is Nigos. So he's Bossa Nigos Weeks. Okay, Nigos from black. And he's a full black German Shepherd. And I can't bring him on the program. He's going to bark out the whole thing. He's not a Snow. He's butter, you know, and and because for me that is when I pick up on that energy in Barbados. I pick up on that, Mr. Franklin. Bussa is a symbol. We need to hold on to that and don't say, oh, are you hear some Bajans say, oh, but the rebellion failed. Man, the man tried. The man tried. And
You
not
see,
just him, but we heard he was working with Washington Pitt Franklin.
Franklin. Mm-hmm.
See, I'm a quick
No,
learner. Write it down.
Washington Pitt Franklin wanted to become king. Right?
Ah,
That was the problem. He wanted to become king. His father was a white man. His mother was a black slave, so he got freed. But he didn't get the benefits like the but like the white children, and
mm-hmm.
he wanted to overthrow the blessed and become king. And that is how the rebellion started. Franklin wanted to be king.
you know. But and so I would just wanted to use the beginning of the show to encourage us and to say that, Mr. Franklin, if we could find areas that we can really bring a change in Barbados. I know there needs to be political change, but this I also believe that it's important for the citizenry, for the people to rise up and do something like that lady with that $7 that she unfolded out of her the little thing that she had, whether it's a paper or whatever. That we find something that we can do for the country. It might be a young man that you see down the road. I was sitting here today, somebody, he came, he can't really even probably read, and he asked me to write out something for him. I was getting ready for the show, a little young man. And I was saying, man, but I'm doing the show. No, take the time and do this thing for him. So what can we do for our country? And I think that is where we need to have our heads. On Sunday, we are going to come together, Mr. Franklin, again with our roadside parliament. This time we're seeking to do it at Independence Square, where we're showing Barrow Freedom Fighter. And it is tentatively going to be there. And so we want, you'll soon see the flyer come out on it. And we want everybody to come out again. It's a Sunday evening. I know, and you don't have work the next day. A lot of you would say to me, but Mrs. Weeks, I would love to come, but I'm working on a Saturday. So let's see you come out on a Sunday. When you're coming Sunday, bring something soft to sit on because we don't have chairs. Or if you want to bring a fold up chair, Mr. Franklin, they could just bring a chair, right? And put down. I guess we can decide if we want to bring up your chairs to
Yeah.
make up. Yeah, we probably can do that as well. But come out and let's sit down together, and we're gonna watch the Barrow film. In addition to that, Mr. Franklin, I was checking with a group of people today, and one of them, Miss McLean, and she said to me, bring out the young people to speak on what is their vision for Barbados. Using Barrow's vision and philosophy as a backdrop. What is their vision for Barbados? Where do they see Barbados like in the next 20 years? So we're not gonna, bring up the same theory Gittins that came on and Don Leacock and probably Jonathan if he's available. Just those. We won't even bother Kima. Let them come and express themselves. Let the young people come and express themselves, and about what is their vision of Barbados. So we're asking everybody to come out, folks, come out, and bring out the entire family. Bring the entire family. Our things are all family focused. We don't have any issues happening there, you know when we showed Barra the last time, Mr. Franklin wasn't there, but you had some men across the street who were just drinking. And when they saw Mr. Barra on the screen, they came over and they were watching it. They seemed drunk. And they were pointing at the screen and they were clapping and saying, I know that and I know that. And because Barra draws that out of them. So bring the children, bring your entire family. It's Errol Barra's birthday, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, see
And you're
what
going to
that
hear people. Yes.
what that does, you see, Marcia, what you are actually doing is to run in counter to what the this present administration is trying to do. They want to wipe out Barrow. They don't want anybody to remember him. That is why they took Independence Day and they call it now Republic Day, because two generations down the road, people will be hearing, "Oh, Mayor Motley brought Barbados to Republican status," and this is why we're celebrating today. Nobody remember Barrow, so we have to keep Barrow and keep pushing Barrow. And I can tell you something, people can be vexed with me for telling you this or for saying this on the thing. But the Democratic Labour Party, Barrow's party, is a disappointment to Barrow, you know. I am very ashamed of their behavior. You know, right, well they should be um especially at this time, focusing on Barrow's vision for Barbados, because Barrow's vision is still very relevant.
Correct.
You know, and they are fighting amongst themselves and cussing one another and all kind of nonsense. It has to stop, because we do not want a party that don't have respect for itself or for the people. So the Democrat Labour Party has to get its act together, because if it does not get its act together, we will end up with this woman one more time with another 30 love, and we can't afford it. We can't afford her all it no. So rather than put your get your act together and get your house in order, you're out there so with nonsense. I am very tired of them. I'm very tired of it. You know, because what will happen then if they don't want to do that? Then there has to be a third party that will come forward and take it from them, because the Democrat Labour Party was a third party at one stage. You know, don't ever forget that. So they had the Conservatives before that has been wiped out, but it was White People Party, and but we need there is a void, and the Democrat Labour Party is refusing to accept the role that it should be playing. Then somebody else has to come forward and do and be the opposition of, to get seats in Parliament to counter what is happening now. Only today I went to get my coconuts. I get coconut water every week, and a man told me the problem in Barbados is politics is involved in everything. He says
Correct.
even now at the Barbados Football Association, they got elections coming up, and he hearing that somebody mayor's candidate. Now what she doing in football? You know she went down to the basement and watched cricket at Saturday at school. But no, but she wants to be involved in everything. They feel they have to control everything. And that is what is destroying this society. Politics rears its ugly head in every sphere of activity in this country. And people have to tell us, look, keep out, mind your business. But you know, these people like to get the notice. You know, if you want to run this country, and they do it very badly because she got her hands in too many pies. But if you look, you can see her portfolios. You can see she has too much work to do, and yet still she wants to get involved in even service clubs. This has to stop. You know, well,
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that, Mr. Franklin. About us, about having um making everything political. And that's why I was saying to us last time that the thing with this whole issue with the broken hospital, which we're going to talk about, that broken healthcare industry, um, there's no way we can make that. We the citizens should not accept politics in our healthcare. We should not accept it. And that's really what I was saying the other night, because look at this now, football, and they bring politics in there. We have a broken healthcare system, and they want to bring politics in there. And that is where we come in, and everybody playing their part. So that's why on Sunday, folks, let us gather. We have in Independence Square, the statue of Errol is there. We know he's not there, but he's an ancestor, you know, and we want to go there, and we're gonna honor him, Mr. Franklin. We're gonna sit around, we're gonna watch the film, We're going to, you've watched the film. What are your thoughts about the film, Mr. Franklin? You're muted. You're muted.
No, I enjoyed it. I watched it twice until it the next time I went to watch it, it had expired on me. you know, I
So he got his special link is what happened because he wasn't well at that particular time. That's the time they claimed, oh, whatever. But you weren't feeling too good and you didn't come out. So we sent the link to him, right? And a special link to him because we could be, it's with the distributor, so we're not able to put it out online. And you watched it 2 times.
I watched it. I was going to watch it the third time, but then the link expired. So but you see, it reminded me of some things that I knew, and some things that I didn't know. It taught me. So for that respect, that I learned from it. You know, I always had some respect for Barrow. I wasn't a them or nothing like that, but I always had respect for him because I knew what he was doing. And as I told you, and I said before on the show, if not for Errol Barrow, I would have sat for the common mirror. I would have probably found out where it was. But
Hmm.
but all of a sudden, Mal with 15 children, he is and working on the plantation. He can get the boy at common mirror. If Barrow didn't provide for free education. So if Barrow did nothing more than that, because education is what made us who we are now. Because we would have been getting our heads of departments and commissioners of police and everything else from England. We were
Right.
getting all of those from England. The commissioner of police in my lifetime, as a matter of fact, the first black man was joined when he was a young fellow. The first black man became commissioner of police. We used to have former soldiers, retired army officers who used to come to Barbados become army officer. I mean the commissioners of police. The problem with that is, and the legislation was so bad that you didn't have a constable needs more qualifications than the commissioner.
Hmm.
The commissioner does not have to have any qualifications whatsoever because it was not designed for Barbadians and it wasn't designed for us. So if you look, when you see an advertisement for commissioner of police, it says these things will be desirable, but not necessary. So anybody in
Hmm.
Barbados who could apply to become commissioner of police, you wouldn't get it because the politicians are gonna pick their man, as they do now. But England made sure that people got the jobs, and the army officers, mind you, they would have been probably good soldiers and stuff. And you figure, well, if I'm a soldier, I could do anything, because
Yeah.
the army doesn't teach you just how to shoot and kill people. And so they brought army officers here and they become commissioners of police. Look at the legislation. You do not need a single CXC, bachelor's, or anything to be a commissioner of police in Barbados, not according to the law. And they've never changed it up to this day. So we would have gotten a lot of people. Education that Barbara stressed on was what also created the middle class in Barbados because we had the rich and the filthy poor. We didn't have
Right.
we didn't have a middle class, and we're losing it now because Motley is making sure we go back to those days when you got dressed rich and poor, not middle class, because the middle class now are where the professionals who grow up and they build homes, they raise children and stuff. They build houses in the parks and the terraces and stuff. But no, they got
Hmm.
mortgages, and a lot of them can't afford the mortgage now because after getting involved in a mortgage, and then the government put some taxes on you that you did not expect, something has to give: the mortgage
Yeah.
or your food. And there's not very many people that can live without food for a long time. So the mortgage suffer, then they take it up, the banks take it up and sell it for pittance or sell it to their friends. And
Hmm.
I tell you, the banks relish the idea of taking up people's houses. Even if you try to work out something with them, they want the house because they got somebody in the
Yeah.
bank who want it for a friend of theirs. And I've seen the credit unions start to do it too. Start to take up people's houses when they could work with these people. I've seen it. As a matter of fact, when I was on the credit committee I was the chairman of the credit committee at Public Workers Credit Union. And they tried to take up a house from a lady. They said, no, this is my responsibility. This house ain't taking it. Man, I fought like hell to keep that woman keep her house because she had lost her job and she couldn't pay the mortgage, but then she got back a job. And
Right.
I'm saying, but look, let me take the arrears, capitalize them, and so she can continue to pay the mortgage. No, 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 I want to take the house because somebody else was looking for the house for a friend of theirs. So it happens all a lot. So
Yeah.
the middle class, I know with the banks, credit unions that offering people and monthly, we can end up with rich and poor again. Because look,
Rich and
the,
poor.
the
This is
taxes
this
going
is
on the
why
poor.
this is why this is why, Mr. Franklin, I'm saying to people, let us come and sit around. Let's do a lot of reflection on the 21st and the 22nd. The 21st, we're going to gather at Independence Square. That's the most fitting place. And I tell you, Mr. Franklin, oh boy, you're going to have to pray for me. Anyhow, they don't give it to us. They said it was available, and I really have to calm myself down. I told somebody in Jamaica, which I told my husband, I said, the only thing I'm not gonna do is to leave my dress over my head. I'm gonna be so mad. And a Bajan tell me that means that what do you mean? What it says that in Barbados they say you're gonna hoist your dress or something like that. I can't remember. But I won't be doing anything like that. But I'm just telling you how upset I would be. But I am believing that we are going to get that space. It's the only fitting place. And we just nobody was using it. Can you imagine that? It was just there because they plan to let pigeons come and live there and filth on top of the statue and do nothing about it, and for the homeless to have it as a house and to live there and hang their clothes and all of that while they get the other park, that the new park that they have, they have security there, and because they did that, you see how they think everything is
Yeah.
so much
And
politics.
they pushed down a building that Barrow built. Out, the National Insurance building. That building didn't need to be pushed down. But, that park isn't even intended for Barbadians. They pushed down the fire station and people burned up in their houses to within they didn't even need a fire truck to get to the fires. All the firemen had to do run outside with their hoses and out the fire. But they moved the station. They moved the fire
Yeah.
station and they moved not the national insurance building and they built that park. That park is intended to provide the front garden of the Hyatt. Because remember the Hyatt would be on the main road.
Yes.
So that is what that garden is all about. And people they're doing it to us and they're doing it to us too often. They just know they're gonna be getting rid of the people in Nelson Street because that's gonna be too close to, and you don't want those Nelson Street people um too close to the height, and when they can build their fancy hotels and stuff on the beach. London Bourne Towers, that can go because how dare they just want to get close to the sea?
Yes.
This you shouldn't have a view of the sea from your bedroom or anything like that. So that is prime real estate. I'm not suited for Barbadians, not for poor Barbadians, because those departments at London Board Towers are not for the rich people. They were built for the poor people, people who cannot afford their own homes. I know the government can get rid of them, mind you. They jump up and they say Mayor loves them and Mayor cares and all kind of stuff. And we now seeing how much she cares.
Hmm.
She cares so much about those Arabs and stuff that she's gonna sell out Barbados to them. They ain't care about us because the Arabs got money. The Arabs. Anytime you see a fellow on the dress and got a funny thing on his head, that and the Arab, everybody he got money,
Yeah.
and she thinks so too. And that is where Barbados is headed. The airport going to the Arabs, and now the garrison going to the Arabs, and God knows who else can get how much Arabs can get the coast line. The
Yeah.
people, it is shameless, but they have to come back to the people, and they want to keep the people's eyes open to make sure that we don't let them miss.
Yeah. And that's what this is all about. And as you were talking there, you are we're reminiscing on the Barrow and the foundations and the vision that he had for this country. And we need to get back there. we need to get back there. We don't, we understand that the man is dead and gone, but his vision, the vision lives on, and his philosophy lives on. And that's what's going to happen on next week Sunday. And the beautiful thing is that we'll have young people sharing their vision of Barbados for the next 20 years, using Barrow's philosophy and vision as a backdrop. And I think that
Mas,
that is moving forward. That's the future. Yeah.
they don't teach the children about Barrow, They just say, "Oh, he's the father of
No.
independence." The father of independence doesn't mean anything. Nobody knows what a father of independence is. But they don't tell you why people call him the father of independence. They don't tell you what he did. They don't. They didn't. For instance, the type of legislation, for instance, national insurance again. That was Barrow. You know what Barbados would be like now without the national insurance. It's bad enough as it is. But if there weren't national insurance, that's another Barrow thing. So I said, if education was the only thing that he did, it would have been great. But he did a lot more. And national insurance,
It's so much.
right now, when I mention national insurance, I start laughing. They call it now NASSS. National insurance was always the National Insurance and Social Security Scheme. It was always NASSS. All they do is take off the last S and call it from scheme and call it service. But these clowns, they
Service.
always go out, they won't come and change it. So it was always, so everybody says national insurance, NAS. It was always, if you look the real word, the real title, it was National Insurance and Social Security Scheme. They took off scheme and put service, and now these clowns walking about the place calling it the NASSSS. They just want to do something. They do nothing. It
Yeah.
always was national insurance with three S's at the back.
Insurance.
But
Yeah.
nobody want to use three S's.
Yeah.
So it was always NIS, national insurance. And now every time I see it, my teeth grind because I want to say something about it. You know, you know, and they're putting out their own literature and putting the NIS because you have people who do not understand, who do not know what national insurance is all about, running the place now. Mind you, the current CEO, very pleasant woman. I like her. Hannah Collin there though knows nothing about it, and I
Yeah.
think she's technical and mind you, I don't know. But she's nice. NISE, National Initiative for Service Excellence. She was the people who ran it. She's very nice. She still is, but out of her depth. Her feet is not touching the sand and the water is over her head. She's really out of her depth, and
Yeah.
that's what but these are the people that they pick. Somebody
Yeah.
asks if there's a fire
You
in
know.
Bridgestone during rush hour. Look, he asked Mark Clark, asked if there's a fire. What they have done though, when they realized the damage they did, because at least two people died in fires in Bridgestone that could have been saved had the fire service been there. So they get the Port Authority to build a fire station for them, and so now there's a fire station inside the port where they will have to just rush out the port and get to the fire. They killed two people first before they decide to realize that they had to have a fire station in the city. The only city in the world that didn't have a fire station was Barbados. So
Inside. Yeah.
they put that one, but it's in the port. Because they
Yeah.
wanted to use that because that was prime. It was too good for the firemen.
Yes. But the reality is this, as you were talking about Mr. Barra and what he did and the NIS building that they pushed down, they can't take him out of our hearts. And so
Watch.
it is
Some
us,
some
it is
some
us.
some somebody says school meals was Errol Barrow. You see, everybody. I want the people to just keep mentioning and showing us what Barrow did. They can put it in the comments here,
Yes,
and you can see. Because people think that Motley has done something. Motley has done nothing. She has done nothing for the good of this country. She has done nothing. Oh, Barbados has done for Motley. Motley has not done anything for Barbados. She's benefited from being Prime Minister of Barbados. Barbados has not benefited from her being Prime Minister because she's run about the world trying to be on everybody's stage. But she's getting that because she's the Prime Minister of Barbados. What has she done for Barbados? It is all about her. She has done nothing. Tormanas did something for Barbados. Barrow did for Barbados. Grant did for Barbados. Wayne Arthur. You know, Martin's has done nothing. So when you're talking about her legacy, mind you, I keep telling people that a legacy could be positive or negative because Hitler has a legacy too. And her legacy would be destruction of the poor in his country. Her legacy would be that she Caribbean people money, and when she did this write off, her legacy would be that she take the money and give it to people in white oats when we needed it. So she got a legacy too. So at least she got a legacy, you know. Well, certain got one too.
You know, as we were looking back at the march, I wanted to make mention of the police. You know, and but I know that there is a video that is going around. I don't know if you saw it, Mr. Franklin. We tried to
Uh,
clean it
um,
up.
I I sent it. No, I was sent to me about 20 times. You know, because people, you know, look, we have this society right that when something goes wrong, you know, everybody is like happy. You know, let me do something. Get rid of the police force, and you will realize that it is missing. Everybody needs the police force, you know, and there will be bad
Yeah.
and good in the police force. I am not saying anything about this,
Like you were in my house today. You were in
you
my
know.
house today because I sent it to a police friend of mine. You know, not to she's a member of her school. And you know, and I was saying to her, I know that there are good people in the police force. I'm gonna let you finish what you're saying, and then we're gonna we cleaned it up a bit, and we're gonna discuss it just 5 minutes, not too long. And I want
Right,
to mention the police that have been helping us, and to tell Barbados how we have good police in the force.
right.
But go ahead,
Yes,
finish
but
your
it's
thought, and then I'm going to share.
that is the point I'm making because see, one bad apple spoils the whole bunch, but it does not do that with people. They talk about apples.
Yes.
So there are good policemen and there are good policewomen. I know some of
Mm-hmm.
them. Some of them I call friend. You know, but if you have what we call a bad header, that is not reflective of the force, and people don't just jump on that bandwagon, boy, and they're so happy when we got them now. It's like it is a gotcha kind of thing. We have look, we got bad teachers, we got bad politicians, we got bad judges, we got bad deputy prime ministers, we got bad
Prime
maids,
Minister.
we got you know we. I was talking about the 7,005, but you know, so see how we can get bad police because the police are not recruited from Mars. They are
Mm-hmm.
recruited from among us, and they are going to be reflective of the society that we come from. The problem here is, and why I am out there supporting the police. You have a situation where the police used to go into the neighborhoods. I don't know if they still do, and check on the people. Ask you apply for police force. The people come on the block and ask, where you know a fella like Casper Franklin? He's a good fella. How he behave, that kind of thing. Don't care how many checks they do. And the politicians want a fella to be a policeman. That's my man. So he got to go. Same thing happened in the prisons. Give an example. Some months ago, a fella escaped from the hospital, from the prison. But he tried to escape because when he jumped through the window, he landed and broke two ankles, so he cannot run no further. So I just go and pick it back and bring him inside. So his escape bid was short lived. But what happened there? His girlfriend, after he was incarcerated, went to a politician and asked to help them with a job. She won't get in prison. She want a job in prison. And know she get it. And then when he tried to escape then and the news broke that who she was, that kind of thing, she resigned. So the politicians are destroying everything. I am not saying that politicians put this particular policewoman in the force. I don't know. But I'm telling you that until such time as the politicians keep out of the recruitment process in the public service, we're going to get things like this. You know, But look, I am look, policemen are not angels. If you wanted angels, you will go to heaven. You will dead and go along to heaven and find angels and stuff. There will be some who will run afoul of the law. I am not rejoicing about it. What has happened is wrong, and she should face the consequences of her actions. But don't make it look as every policeman. I know. I look when I was in Parliament. I met some young police people inside there, and they impressed me. I was, some of them got master's degrees. I talk about constables, you know. Some of them got psychology and all kind of thing. This is not a lick up police force, but that is the reputation people want to give them. You go into a community, the police say, I want you to disperse. Obey the police. No, you up your camera and some people want to fight. You want locking up
Yeah,
because he's
yeah.
obstructing the police in the performance of their duty. But he could get on social media and people will think. Some people can curse me for one saying, I really don't care. But let something happen to them. Let them
And
be
then
in the house at night and hear
we need
somebody
the
in the
police.
yard. And then
Right.
who you can call? You can call and see fools out there running about. Let you hear two gunshots outside. What you going to do?
You need the police.
You
You
can
need the
call the
police.
police. And all of a
You need
sudden,
the
the
police.
police
I
is the
mean,
worst
we
thing.
know, like, as you're saying, in everything you have, good and bad. But let's just show them. I just want to show. We remove the bleeps because a lot of people overseas, they might not know what is happening. But I set it up for you. We'll only show one. This is where what seemed to have occurred. We can only go by what we think might have occurred. There was seemingly to have been they're arresting someone, and it appears as though the police woman, the police officer, the female police officer, is saying in one of the clips that she was hit by the person who's being arrested, and she was very very angry. She was cursing, and she promised the person being arrested that she, when they get down to the police station, she was going to deal with them. And so now this is a follow-up. So they got to the police station, and this is the video. So just look at it a little.
Are you wicked? I can't hear your belly too. You want to say? I kick your boat too. You nuisance. They are ERT.
So where they going?
They're on the way down.
God don't sleep, man.
Huh? You think I want your horse? I know your horse. Huh? You're black and ugly. And you're scruffy. Huh? Can you?
You see, this here now talking about. He sound like he wants some like the prophet something other talking. Oh God, don't sleep and all kind of stuff. If he was a law-abiding Christian fella and thing, he didn't be in there. You look, you how many times the police come and pick up me and come anywhere? I'm 65 years old. Never once. You wanna know why? I'm law-abiding.
Yeah.
Mind you, I drive fast once or twice, and I got caught. But but I don't think that would be enough for the government can the station. You gotta support the police. If you do not support the police, this country we can be in a situation where you're gonna need them, and the police can be too frightened to do the job.
Do
Right now,
anything.
there might be some excesses. That you will have that wherever you go. But being handled George Floyd incidents on Answer and Barbados, we've had one or two things that happen. Yes, it can happen because the interaction sometimes in the heat of the moment. I remember one night I was on guard duty at the Barbados regiment. I was a young, I think it was a last corporal, and some guy from a ship was climbing over the walls. I hit him with my rifle butt, and think fellas had to take me off it because I was cruel. And but I was a young fella, but I could have easily taken him off the wire, but I had to get a lash because he did playing the fool. And he had it trying to sneak into a security area like that. I was a young little fella. I was 19, 20. I can't be more than that. So I tell, in the heat of the moment, things will happen. But when it happens, we will deal with it. But what you can't do is decide that we're going to pull down the whole police force and every policeman you see up there is a thug. That is not the
Yeah.
case.
not the case. So let's just say a few more words on this because Miss McLean has to come on. We're talking about our broken healthcare system. We're going to talk about, but I just want to. I do know that there is a police brutality. That it exists and it exists everywhere. As you have good police, you have bad police, and I want to signal out some good police that I know. I want to single out Senior Superintendent Adrian Brooms. That man is someone of such noble character, and just a gentleman. And I've talked to so many persons who know him inside the police and outside, and he's a noble person. I wanna thank him for his support for us with all the marches, etc., and for facilitating what we do. I want to mention Superintendent Christine Stanford, a female police, but just so I don't know if you know her, Mr. Franklin, just so neat and together and just a beautiful spirit. All of them in that office, at Central Police Station. Inspector Karen Grant, you say Karen Grant. Listen, this woman was so good to us, Mr. Franklin, on Saturday. And when I watched this and it was a policewoman, I said, my goodness, this is so disgraceful for the force when you have such wonderful people, right? Such wonderful people inside there working, police women with dignity. One of them was a student of mine just only last year. Dignity, hardworking people, so I just wanted to say that. And at the same time, recognizing, right? That you know what they really need to make sure. I mean, this if this is the behavior of a police, of this, if it's truly a police woman, this person needs to be dealt with immediately, so that they don't have this kind of bad behavior existing in the force. Okay, and Constable Ronnie Cutting, another student of mine. I just felt like doing that tonight because we just have to balance out everything and to recognize that as much as this has occurred, we do need the police and we do have good police there, but this particular one needs to be dealt with if the videos are true. Okay? All right. So let's just bring Miss McLean in. Good evening, Miss McLean.
Good evening to you. How are you?
I'm at saying
Oh,
I'm
doing
good.
great.
As well.
Well, I'm still wonderful.
I'm listening. I was listening to you. But I know you're wonderful. I've always been intrigued. I listen, as a student of history, that was my initial intention. Um, it was interesting that you shared the research you did. I was also going to ask if you're related to Washington Franklin. I don't. Marcy didn't pick up on it, but
I don't know. I don't know. I tend to hope so.
you said there's something else that you said that I need to check into when you talked about the houses that were described as slave huts, because unfortunately it was demolished. There was one in my maternal grandmother's family, and my recollection, and I will have to check with my nephew because he's the guy who does all the research, was that this was in my great grandmother's. It was from her family. Now she was what they called an Eki Becky from
Yeah.
St. John, which perhaps supports the point you were making about who owned those houses. I mean, slaves might have ended up constructing in the same way and so on. But that's an interesting take on it, because my great grandfather, as he was described, was a big strapping black man with an Eki Becky wife. He was actually a policeman at one point, and he was a harbor policeman, and then a policeman back in the 1800s, which is interesting. But that is not what I'm here to talk about. So I don't want to get started on
No,
history.
no, you could do it. We still give you a little bit more time.
Yes. So Marcia, let me say congratulations to you. I was listening to the program from the start. So and I want to, in terms of the march and so on, people have been asked why they don't see me, but yesterday in particular, I was marching in front of this on a Zoom meeting, to another kind of drum, So that was a subcommittee of this commission that I'm sitting on, but that is hopefully we're in the the wrap up stages of that exercise. But I think really and truly, everywhere I turn, I must tell you this: people have been asking to convey their appreciation for what you're doing. You being yourself, Caswell, and the entire guests and program, Kimar, etc. Because this, as I told you, is proving to be highly educational for the populace and for people who follow from overseas. Because not only Barbadians overseas, there are others who follow this program, and so I think it is critical. And kudos to you, and even to Snow, who barks his approval. Is he or she? Is it
She,
he who marks her disapproval or approval at strategic points? And I don't think it has anything to do with Caswell. Um, I guess she's bright in the same way he chose a bright dog. And he has some very bright offspring as well. That's Caswell. So I suppose he wouldn't want to acquire a silly puppy or so. Okay. I'm supposed to talk about health, innit? Right,
yeah.
Marcia? And let me say that a number of things have really triggered my thoughts, and I hope I can. There's so much I've been writing about and whatever, and as is usual, you say you'll talk about something, but then something turned up, and I was having a conversation, Caswell, with my little brother Hugh, as you know, and when we started to talk cooperatives and related matters, but that's something I will talk about hopefully in the future. So if my thoughts are not as organized as I would have as I want them to be, but listening to Mr. Gibson and his presentation on health really started me thinking about the whole question of health. But I wanted to look at it from the perspective of persons like myself. And when I say persons like myself, I have come to accept that whether I want to label myself this, I now fall into the category of the elderly in Barbados. Persons over 60 years old. And I tell people I'm closer to 70, Marcia, than I am to 60. And I am also older than Caswell. So
Not by much.
not by much. But in all seriousness, what I recognize that as I listen to the program and I observe what's happening in the public health sector, we are really challenged as a country to make sure that we address the needs of the elderly, because there are a couple of things. One, we hear over and over again, Barbados is an aging society. And if you look at the average age of Barbadians, an average age for the population, you would see that it is on the mature side. Contrast that with many of the countries in Africa where a significant percentage of the population is under 35 years old. And the second thing is that there's a high incidence of NCDs in Barbados. People are suffering from hypertension, diabetes, obesity, heart related problems. We have a very high incidence of kidney problems. And I can go on and go on. And the reality is that the vast majority of persons suffering from those rely on the public service, on the public health system. And you would have heard Paul talk about primary health care and polyclinics and so on. But at the end of the day, the QEH is our sole public acute care institution. It's our main hospital. When I was a child, we had something we used to refer to as the general hospital. Caswell probably remember that. Yes, we have polyclinics and we do
Yeah,
have
it's
some.
dilapidated now, and they want to sell that land to the Arabs too, where the general hospital used to be.
There, we can soon start selling people, which is taking us back to slavery. But anyhow, we will come back to that. And this is one of the concerns. So when I look at that, I ask myself, what happens to people to our elderly when the institutions that they rely on are unable to deliver um, proper health care. And if I can look at it within the context, because I don't want to take you back the whole history of it. I mean, health has been a major category of expenditure for successive governments, but we have also found that over the years we've had a lot of problems. I'm not going to spend time talking about what might have been done, as far as I know, to alleviate those problems, but suffice to say that a lot of remedial action taken seems to have gone by the window. And a lot of this seems to have been complicated by decisions taken to manage COVID. And one of the things, if you know, and I am sharing my perspective and my interpretation based not on any what I would call bias or partisan position, but by gathering information, revisiting comments of public officials, the prime minister. Remember, we used to have briefings all the time and so on. And if you recall, there was a decision about people going to the QEH. Now, people go to the QEH not only for to be admitted, let me put it that way, but because there have been patients of the QEH, a lot of people attend outpatient clinics. And one of the first things to suffer would have been the outpatient clinic. So one of my concerns, therefore, has to do with what I consider to have been the negative impact of COVID-19 and decisions made about how the hospital was going to operate during the height of the pandemic on regular outpatient services. For example, a lot of we were told, especially people suffering from NCDs, high blood pressure. I mean, we have an ongoing problem with persons who suffer with eye issues, the eye clinic, and I've spoken about this here in other fora. Um, and so people, as I said, people with cardiac problems, renal issues, vision, hypertension, obesity, etc., found themselves not being able to attend clinics as they're supposed to. And the long and short of that, the outcome of that has been, up to now, the a high incidence of on not on control. I mean, how not control. I mean, conditions not being controlled. Let me put it that way. So, in other words, out of control. That's the expression I want. So, people are probably walking around with their blood pressures higher than they ought to have been. They're probably um, not necessarily being, because they're not attending clinics. They're probably continuing to do some of the things they do to try to trick doctors. They're probably not taking their medication appropriately. In some cases, we know that there are Barbadians who take the medication and then the cupboard or the shelf takes it because they stack it up there. When they go to the doctor, they do something to bring their pressure down or bring their blood sugar level down, believing that they can fool the doctor. So all in all, what we're seeing in terms of vision issues, glaucoma is a major problem here. And basically, if you are not seen by a doctor, and we know that every 6 months, typically that's what happens. People will go to the clinic, and they are not seen. They just get a rollover and they continue to get a prescription. But as somebody who has a family history of eye issues, I am extremely careful with my eyes, in terms of making sure I keep my doctor's appointments, do whatever I'm told. So if a public patient who cannot pay a private doctor does not get to see his or her ophthalmologist, her optician, whatever the service at the hospital, and nobody knows the condition of their eyes. So I have an appointment 6 months. I go out, I wait 6 months, and then they tell me, sorry, come back 6 months. So that means I've not seen the doctor for a year. So all of these things, and think of that, that's an example. We can think about it in relation to other clinics that have been postponed. Translate that now into conditions that are out of control and people finding themselves presenting to the hospital as emergency patients. We've had over the years issues with the accident and emergency, and we've been telling people in recent times. I will use an expression, a friend of mine, PR gone wrong. You're hearing, do not come to the hospital unless it is life threatening. I'm not a doctor. How do I know if it's life threatening or not? I may get pains in my chest. I might have had a mild heart attack. I might have whatever. I need to see a physician to know what is the case. Now, they tell you can use the polyclinics, but unfortunately, those are not functioning as efficiently, staffing and all kinds of things. So my concern really and truly is when we look at this situation that is being compounded by problems, how do we solve these things? And one of the things that I believe that we have to do is to go and first of all develop what I call a patient-centered approach. Um, and if we do that, I will give you some concrete examples. We often hear accusations of, they call it granny dumping or abandonment of elderly at the hospital and so on. Is it that is that a problem because people don't care, or is it a problem because people do not have the wherewithal to take care of relatives when they leave the hospital? Have anybody sat to talk to caregivers and patients about one, the patient who is going to be discharged, the condition, the requirements in terms of home care, and whatever the case may be, understanding. So I am suggesting that if we are to address some of these shortcomings, we need to have developed what I would call a proper program of discharge, what I call discharge programs. Because at the end of the day, if you have been to a hospital or had to deal with patients, um, in some cases the patients are not clear. I mean, there's what I would call some kind of handover procedure. That is, the patient is given medication or whatever. But I don't think that there's enough consultation. The other concern I have is that because you have patients being discharged without full, support, as the way I want to describe it, they often end up coming back to the hospital. So in other words, the management of their condition at home is insufficient, and I'm saying that that can be improved if the processes of discharging that patient if the processes are made easier. So I am suggesting, Marcia and Caswell, that when we start to think in terms of the care of the elderly, one of the things that we have to think about is what or one of the suggestions I want to make is that we need to have some kinds of community structures to deliver healthcare in the community. So what you're talking about really is creating mechanisms to, one, monitor and support the elderly in the community. And part of this
Okay.
would be about aftercare, and part of it has to be about preventative care.
Mhm.
Okay. And as I said, there's so much I want, and I did tell you I'll try to speak in 20 minutes and then we could think. But I'll give you an example. Frequently in the hospital, you hear of persons becoming gravely ill because of bed sores, right?
Mhm.
I will say this from some of the research I've done. A lot of those bed sores don't start in the hospital. Patients go home. Let's say they're pretty immobile or whatever. A relative doesn't have the knowledge. They don't have the resources to bring in help or whatever. They don't have the time, because sometimes if you are a low wage earner who has to go to work, and you have an elderly person at home, you don't have the luxury of staying home and looking after that person. You don't have the luxury of bringing in professional assistance. And therefore, the point I'm making is there has to be some decision taken about what kind of support do you give that family, do you give that patient, and do you give that caregiver, so that the caregiver understands how to manage and a patient in bed. How do you turn a patient? How do you lift a patient? Because a lot of people get injured trying to take care of ill people too, who
Right.
so the point is that we have to look beyond talking about acquiring state of the art equipment. That's important, but we often look, I call it throwing money at problems rather than really getting to the heart of the problem. And I think that there is need for greater attention paid to, and I believe this may fall under the arm of the social work department of the hospital, the Ministry of Social Care, the Ministry of Elder Affairs, well, the agencies. I'm not sure if they're ministries now. I have to go back. There's so many of them nowadays, and I'm not trying to be facetious, that sometimes trying to keep up with who does what for whom. But I'm saying that there needs to be a lot of work done to have community interventions,
Okay.
um, to address these things. Now, I'm trying to read the screen at the same time. The other point, and I will touch this in terms of folks are addicted to fast foods like drugs. I know from talking to a late friend of mine when he was getting medical treatment in Cuba. Every time, every morning, when the doctors were doing their rounds, it wasn't a single doctor, it was a team. So, for example, we are talking about NCDs. We are talking about, the issue of diabetes, for example, or hypertension. What should be the nutritional practices followed by those patients? And therefore, I believe that within the health system, we have a number of nutritionists. Somebody suggested to me they might have had at some point in time about 25 persons enjoy and I'm going to come back to the management of the QEH, because I mean I'm trying to read and respond to that as well, because that's in a sense questions. But I'm also suggesting that within this whole scheme of things that I'm thinking about, that nutritionists need to play a more important role in patient management, patient education, because at the end of the day, if we allow a diabetic to go home and not know how to eat properly, or where to find nutritional foods that are not necessarily expensive, how to utilize some of the traditional foods that we grew up on,
Mhm.
how to manage their diet and so on. They're going to keep coming back, and then you're going to find that they're going to develop all kinds of problems and amputations, and all of these things flow from there. Now, I'm going to stick a pin there and speak to what Easy D is saying. He said, he or she says, Maxine, it comes down to poor management QEH over a number of years. I also want to say this. Also, health science subjects should be taught in school. We can learn in school, but I'll tell you what, there's a lot of information out there that we also can educate ourselves about. But if at 70 or 75, I have been eating for a long time, to change my palate might be difficult, but sometimes it comes down to economics, what you can afford to buy. But I want to say something about the management of the hospital, because remember, I started out by saying that the QEH is our one public acute care facility, our one general hospital.
Yes.
And I have to say this because, and people can now accuse me of being political. When I was in government, I had the distinct honor of being asked to chair a committee that interviewed candidates. Well, one candidate, because by that time it had been brought down to one candidate for the position of CEO. And I will call his name. His name was Dr. Dexter James. And I remember grilling the gentleman because he had a really lovely CV, brilliant, well trained PhD in hospital administration or whatever the title was, and so on. And we grilled the gentleman. He got the job, and I observed him over the years. He worked there, and he did a good job, because the hospital has major challenges. And one of the challenges is that at the time when he was recruited, it was not, as far as I'm concerned, sufficiently patient-centered, right? And I'm not going to go into the details of things, but he was there, and clearly in the time that he was there, I saw changes. And I didn't see changes as a minister. I saw changes because in that time, I would have seen my brother, my oldest brother, go there. I had a sister who, for 40 something years at the time of her death, was a patient of the hospital, um, trying to be diagnosed when she was in her late 20s until she was diagnosed with lupus. One of the first case I know of in Barbados. I saw her, it was about 15 years of dialysis. And as I told somebody at the hospital when she was dying, when I come in here, I am not coming in here as a former minister of government, so don't take it out on me. I come in here as Monica Holder's sister. That was her name. She can't do anything because she's gone to her maker. So, but I don't think she would mind me calling her name. And the point I'm making is that we cannot play games and political games with certain things. I was very concerned when I saw the exit of that gentleman. And in fact, he's somewhere else in the region. He was a citizen of, I think he was Tobagonian. Trinidad and Tobago would be that was where he was from. But he came, highly recommended, and because I also had contacts as a former university lecturer, when I saw some of the references, I happened to know some of the people. I literally picked up the phone and asked them, and then I saw that replaced, and we suffered, and we are suffering because of that. I will say this, there was a lot that was done to make sure the hospital became accredited and all kinds of things. We lost some of those things. So right now, I worry, as you mentioned, I think I'm trying to remember the expression you used. Our hospital is in disarray. And I say that because last year I lost a nephew. And during the same year, unfortunately, at one point, his sister was hospitalized as well. And I know that my sister went through to know that at some point in time, one or the other of her children would have been, very, very ill. And we lost one. And I saw what happened, you know. And so for me, it is very personal when I think about the things that are happening. And I am watching now because I know that there's a discussion recently of the hiring of a new CEO, and I am waiting to see who he or she is and what they will bring to the table. And my worry is that unless we get that right, it will compound the challenges that we have at the hospital. But back to what I was saying, Marcy, in terms of, because I've been critiquing, but I also want to make suggestions. I am hoping that in the same way that we developed a program of community care for persons with mental illnesses, community psychiatric care, that we can really revisit and identify as a critical area of need a program of community care of the elderly. We have I started to read, but I had to stop because I something came up and I had to pay attention to that. But I started to read because I wanted to see what was reported by government on care of the elderly. And when I looked at that, I realized, and I started to count, but I as I said, I was called away, but we probably have about 50 or so private elder care homes and so on in Barbados. And that is great because I think the burden cannot be on government to supply elder care, institutionalized care. But I am concerned that, and again, this is from experience of friends and family, we have a cross section of institutions. I mean, private operations, some of them offering excellent care, some of them promising to offer excellent care, and some of them downright not delivering good care. Um, and I've had the good fortune of having relatives in care, and I was quite happy with what that care was. In both, one was pretty short term, but the other one was a little longer. But I was quite happy. They were both in the same place. But I am hoping that there can be better collaboration, and not only the setting up of what should happen. In other words, there needs to be proper monitoring, certification and monitoring of those facilities. In the same way that we need to pay attention to what happens in our public geriatric hospitals. I also believe, and I think Caswell raised something recently about there was a closure, there was no notice given to the public generally. I heard it, and patients moved. I think there was one in St. Thomas, Caswell, and that was closed.
Gordon Cumming Hospital, yeah.
Right, the Gordon Cummins. Now, as I said, this is an issue I've discussed with several people. I have friends in the NGO, health NGO community. I am involved in a health NGO. I have colleagues who would have worked as ministers of health and all of that. And as a cabinet colleague, I had to pay attention to these things. But I am also thinking that perhaps there is need for a new way of elder care, what I would call provision for independent living. I mean, we have, for example, I think it was the Seroptimus Village is an example. That's run by the Seroptimus, as the title suggests. But there are persons who will need assistance. There are people who would probably be independent. And as I said, I think of myself. I recall a friend of mine telling me some years ago that one of his co-workers had asked him for assistance because once she retired, she decided, look, I don't need no 3 or 4 bedroom house anymore. And so the person sold their home and they moved into a residential kind of community. Now, everybody does not need to be in what I would call a hospital setting. And there are ways that we need to revisit how we keep people in their communities, even if not necessarily in their own homes, or having facilities which are easy to access. If I had a relative in the Gordon Cummins home in St. Thomas, and I live in St. James where I live, and they took my relative from St. Thomas, which is not far from here, and took them to St. Philip, to the geriatric hospital in St. Philip. It is going to become hard for me if I'm a 50-year-old with children, or and a job, or a 30-something-year-old, and I want to visit my grandmother. I don't have transportation. I don't have my own vehicle. I can't just leave my job and go. And so in essence, I'm saying that we have to find some solutions. In fact, we also have to think about how. And I believe I've heard some of this. I didn't have time to follow it because I wasn't thinking of this topic. I was thinking about it today. Let me put it in that sense, in terms of what I would share. But I give an example. There was a lady who worked for me, and while she worked as a house, as a maid in a house, and so on, she at one time was looking after 2 elderly parents, and both of them at one point were bedridden. And in her, I mean, to her, how should I say, kudos to her, because I remember, one died and then the other died, but never did she have to take them to the hospital. They never had bed sores or anything. And furthermore, the conditions under which she lived were very, very meager and simple, and she did it. But it was, imagine how stressful that would have been. In fact, I said to her, it would have been good if the government could have paid you to look after those 2 old people. Because if push came to shove and she had to miss several days work and so on, some unreasonable employers would say, well, you know what, choose between my job and looking after your family. So I'm thinking that, and I think I've heard about this, where allowances may be given, because a person who is working for minimum wage, for example, a gas station or whatever, might be better off being paid to take care of a relative who otherwise may have to be institutionalized at taxpayers' expense. So it's a question of how you use the money. And some people would prefer to be at home, you know, um, with their families and so on. So my concern, because Marcy, you can tell me what time it is. I don't know, because there's a lot more I can say.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I mean, it's interesting. So I kind of allowed you to go on, and we went over the 20 minutes.
mhm.
But I mean, you raised some very important points there, and I wanted to hear what Mr. Franklin, had to say about that. There's some questions here about the IMF, and I see Kimar in the there as well. Yeah, so let me know when he's ready to come in. But uh, uh, Mr. Franklin, Miss McLean talked a lot about community care, and there's somebody here saying that the elderly can live at home and we can have home health aides to assist and so on. What are your thoughts generally about this community care, that
That
idea?
that is something I was talking about on one of the shows earlier, and I'm glad
Mm,
Maxine mentioned it, because one of the things that Maxine's talking about, one of the last things she's talking about is paying, let's say, to take care of your relatives at home, because it's going to be far cheaper for the government to give you
mm,
a stipend to take care of your elderly relative than for you to abandon them at the hospital, because and people keep talking about granny dumping and they do not understand what it is all about. But Maxime was quite clear. You have a relative. The relative is ill. You take them to the hospital. No, you have to take care of them to the hospital, but you're at work. You got two little children or three children at school. Are you going to stay home from work to take care of the relative, then can't feed the children? So something has to give. So you cannot go back for the thing. In my days, there were almshouses in almost every parish, and the elderly would be able to go to those facilities, and the matron would take them in. Now, if you have an old person want to get this type of care, it goes through a whole bunch of nonsense before you can get the person in. By the time you get somebody, anybody dead. Because
okay.
they're suffering. There's no fast track. I have tried when I work as a personal assistant to get people into care who could take care of themselves, and it was grueling work to take care of get old person taken care of in Barbados, and that is
Mhm.
because governments successively have missed the boat, and they think that the nonsense that you hear people talking about granny dumping and all kind of nonsense, it can absolve them. No, they have a responsibility. Maxine quite rightly said that government can't. I'm reading. Um, uh, be responsible for the institutional care for the elderly, but not all the elderly. But it must be responsible for some, because if you are working and you retire, you get a nice pension, you don't want to go in the house or the district hospital, as the case may be, anyhow. So you're going to be taken care of in a facility. You might have children who can support you in there. Sometimes these people cost $3,000 a month. These people that I'm talking about do not earn $3,000 a month in salary. So when you get a pension, it can be far less than the $3,000, and you can't support yourself on that, and you can't pay a home. So the government must fill the breach. That's why I'm saying to you that they have missed this government especially has missed the boat by not taking care of those who cannot take care of themselves. That's what government is supposed to be doing. Government is about taking care of the most vulnerable first.
Yeah. Yes.
This government is taking care of the rich and famous, and unfortunately, they make a poor fellow like me, who can't afford to take care of my relatives, look bad and demonize us and make people laugh at me. When in fact, you are actually saying to that person, you're saying to that person, you don't got no money, so you perish, you're dead. But
Hmm.
that's all they're telling you, So Maxie was quite right, and I'm glad that she came into this topic again tonight. One of the things she talked about earlier too was people not taking the medication, and I have known people who died from not taking the medication. Let me make an appeal to some men. It's better to be alive all right, rather than not take your medication and end up in the grave because some medications, the men cannot perform what they used to do. You know, I'm talking about under the sheets. So they are so used to that you know they can't. So rather than go back to the doctor and say, "But doc, this thing is working for me yeah, because right now I don't know, said my wife like she's my sister." No, and the doctor will try something else. He don't take the medication, and next thing you know, the pressure shoots right up. He's dead. So I want to appeal to the men. If the medication is not allowing you to perform, and you think you should be able to still perform, go back to the doctor, and he can try something else rather than you decide I'm taking it because you macho. That's nonsense. We lost a lot of men, and I'm talking about men who I thought were sensible, you know, because I know one or two who it actually happened to. I'm not going to embarrass them by calling the names, but they they elevate sexual prowess too high, you know, and as a result, they don't take the diabetes medication either for whatever because something they said that's also slow you down. And they go and take something, they go and drink neem that poisons and destroy your liver, and then oh your sugar is down, and next thing you know they have a book on one foot because they do not do what is required of them. Again, Maxine spoke about during COVID, and the nurses complain to me about this because they have patients who they have to monitor, and when they don't get a chance to monitor those patients, the conditions get a lot worse. So a lot of people died because they cannot come to the polyclinic and get managed. You know, I don't go to the polyclinic. I go to the doctors and stuff and stuff. And so the doctors actually call me and say, "Wait, your appointment coming up." The polyclinic is not going to do that. And during COVID, when they were telling you don't come, those people's conditions deteriorated. Some of them who had to get dressings and stuff, they didn't look after the foot well enough or the sore well enough, and next thing you know, he too then got to look for prosthesis. So, healthcare, please, of my people, remember, you are no use to yourself if you are in the fridge at Lyndhurst. You need to you know, go to the doctor. Let the doctor explain. You don't study any medicine, and a lot of people walking about telling you, "Oh, take this thing and take the next thing." I don't take none of them because next thing you know, I can take not knowing the what the interactions they might have. I can go and take one, and next thing you know, I turn white. It's ain't happening. Go and
Yeah.
get professional help. It is incumbent upon you to take care of yourself first. And then you rush to the doctor, you rush to the polyclinic, you rush to the hospital after you have the thing. I spoke about neem earlier. Neem actually reduces your blood sugar and all kind of stuff. But neem also destroys the liver, poison you. And you see what happens. Neem is used in organic farming. You put the neem leaves in the water and you spray the plants and it's killed them. Look at there, you drinking insecticide. That's what it is. It takes a lot longer to kill you and it will kill the flies because you're much bigger. But you're drinking insecticide. And people go, I said, follow my post office, breaking off the neem leaves, talking about you can make tea. I said, boy, you poisoning yourself. And I try to
Well,
explain.
I guess I mean in fairness, Caswell, because we're not doctors here. I guess it would be the amount of it that you drink, right? Because neem can also be good for you, right?
No, it is not good for you because when you drink it on a regular basis, the liver, the liver takes out poisons. Even the fumes from the car, the liver is takes out them and get rid of them. Now, if you keep poisoning it, the liver then gives up at one stage. The neem, it brings down your sugar, it brings down everything, yes. But then, you see, you do not know. Just like marijuana and things when you're smoking them. They might have good properties, but when you put all together and smoke them or drink them, you don't know
Correct.
what you are
Which
getting.
is why, Mr. Franklin, if you there are doctors that are trained as herbal doctors that can tell you the right amount of neem to use, and I know of doctors who are herbal doctors, and
I
they
go to
can
one
work with
now.
you and the neem. So so I think though we have to
I,
put a
I,
little caution there.
I go to one now, actually, and I've been to one. I was having some issues, and the regular doctor wasn't sorting it out. I went to this, and she was able to tell me before I tell her what was wrong with me. When she doing the test on me, she was telling me what was happening with me, and I was saying, "But jeez, she could have waited, nah? You know." But
Yes.
so I understand. So I don't have a problem with herbal doctors and that kind of stuff. But I'm talking about the fellas who go there and prescribe without having any training whatsoever because it looks good. And then you poison off yourself. And then
Yeah.
it's harder for the actual medical practitioner or even the herbalist who is trained then to get you back to good health if it is possible. So Maxine is quite right. Follow up, mind you, and go like for instance, I make sure my eyes are good. As my I used to go to an ophthalmologist, and I had to stop going because I found another one because he treated his staff badly, so I had to write him a letter, so I cannot go back. But you know, but that is the thing. You, I just want people to realize that as most all medicines, uh, most medicines originally came from plants, but right now people use um, petroleum products and stuff that make the medicines, the chemicals and stuff. But the original medicines, for instance, if you take vitamins, the vitamins that are derived from plant-based vitamins, your body tolerates better and use more of them than the chemicals. I mean, the ones that you use that comes from the processes from the lab and making chemicals, they pass right through the body and then don't stop in there, right? But but when you go under the testing, you can say, oh, they got this vitamin, but the body don't know how to use them. So the plant-based ones, but they're a bit more expensive, but the body can use them and they're better, as opposed to seeing one and let somebody tell you, well, you get this from the plant. For instance, I hear a fellow saying, pond grass. You can use pond grass to help the men with prostate problems. And men go and drink the pond grass, and next thing you start to grow breasts because the pond grass seems to have. Yeah, it happens. You know.
Caswell, Caswell, Caswell. Let me go to Kimar. Kimar, good night, Kimar. How are you doing? I know you're not drinking. You're not taking any palm. What they call it? Palm grass to grow any breast. How are you?
Yeah,
They
good
say
night, guys.
it's just flat, man.
Good night. Good night. Good night. No, Kimar, good night. But we want to go into this because I think that this is so very important. And let me just hasten to say that those of you who are really, really interested in continuing this conversation, like, and really want to roll up your sleeves and work, only those people, please give me a call, right? Give WhatsApp me. I'm gonna put the number here. If you're serious about working on the healthcare situation in Barbados, because I'm really not about just talking about it. And we have people in the diaspora already, Caswell and Mr. Franklin and Miss McLean, who are contacting me. They're meeting together, not they're at least on WhatsApp, and they are coming up with solutions, and something great is coming. I don't want to say it all on here, but if you're interested and you're serious, we're not coming on there to talk about what the prime minister didn't do and what this person didn't do. Listen, we taking charge, we taking responsibility, right? So if you're interested in that, give us your WhatsApp me right now, and I will pass you on to the people, because the people I'm passing you on to are serious. Okay. Let me go to Kimar at this point. Kimar, there's a question here. Hurricane Writer was the first one who brought it up, and others are asking. They said, what instructions the IMF and the WHO have given the government of the QH and the healthcare system in Barbados? So we're going to touch a little bit about that, and then we're going to come back and talk about some solutions. Go ahead, Kimar. You have any thoughts on that?
Well, first off, good night to everyone. Good night to you. Good night to
Right.
Caswell, Maxine, and to the entire loyal opposition. Um, I had a really good march yesterday. It was excellent. So that's a round of applause for everybody in the numbers to support the march. I was glad to see everyone showing their strength yesterday. The IMF and the hospital. Well, unfortunately, the hospital and the health ministry is not exempt from the IMF's knife. Um, During COVID, you would have heard Avinash Prasad saying that the government ring fenced two ministries, which were health and education.
Mm.
Now, health was the main ministry uh, that was most operational during COVID, which means that most of the monies borrowed, the IMF and the IDB were spent through the health ministry, right? So therefore, health got a massive increase in its budgets to build the A&E, to build Harson's Point, to do upgrades to the hospital. Um, there were things about buying ambulances. There was donations of medical equipment from Rihanna, right? So quite a substantial amount of money was given to the health ministry. They even put a new change the management structure to put a new CEO in place. Um,
Executive chairman.
yeah, right, executive chairman, sorry. And that executive chairman, for the first time in political history, directly to the prime minister. Right? So you had direct interference from the prime minister's office in the health ministry from day one. So once the prime minister being minister of finance, who was taking advice from Kevin Greenidge at the time, who was her senior technical advisor to the government for the IMF, his recommendations were to be that as a fiscal rule across all IMF programs in the world, to cut 3% of your health budget. Right? It recently happened in Jordan. 3% you have to cut. So cuts could mean reducing the amount of nurses, reducing the amount of doctors, reducing the amount of polyclinic operational, reducing the amount of services that the government would pay for, encouraging more point of sale fees so that if you come to the hospital, you would have to pay front, um, using the polyclinics as first response basis, so as to stop people from coming into the hospital by setting up the polyclinic sector to be more efficient. Um, Also, the government would have invested substantial amounts of money in terms of reversing the wait times and the NE, but um, that didn't improve, right? So that was a waste of money in the respect of trying. You wait sometimes 4 days for somebody to see you in the NE, and sometimes you have to sit on the floor,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the money was not adequately invested, uh, but it's the healthcare got substantially worse, and that was during the, as I say, that was during the increase in the health budget during COVID. So now that the the money that we borrowed during COVID, we're not borrowing it right now. So money that was cut from the health budgets, you saw the people who were the COVID-19 monitors being going home. The unit was shut down. The Harrison's Point no longer functional as was. So the government reduced these health transfers substantially, right? Um, I know, the next pitch the government is coming with now is mental health services, and using mental health services now as a catchphrase because they're not trying to attract investment from the IDB and the World Bank to invest in the psychiatric aspect of health. Um, so eventually you might hear the government say, man, we gonna have to increase or to do repairs to the psychiatric hospital because it's not the standard and they're gonna make it up to world standards or whatever. But remember, part of the work agenda is that the IDB and the World Bank and these people
Mm-hmm.
also behind the mental health movement as well.
Yeah.
Part and you see it with the CNIDB survey, right? Right. So as part of the CNIDB survey would have involved a mental health aspect. Mm. So that is the what we call the catchphrase or the attractor to gain investment from the same institutions, now to funnel money through that aspect, because the IMF is recommending that the government reduce its investment in the traditional healthcare sector as it was before, because they believe that countries should be offering universal healthcare or education.
Mm-hmm.
They call it a utopia or a dream for many developed countries. So a small country like Barbados should never be giving free healthcare for everybody, nor free education for everybody. So MF philosophy now is trying to reverse what Barbados has. That if Marcia Weeks goes to the QEH, she pays for whatever service she has. If Maxine McLean goes to the QEH injured, she has to pay for whatever service, whatever bandage she has, as opposed to the government paying for it universally. Right? The doctors will now become, because the hospital is going to be eventually privatized, like what you see
Mm-hmm.
in America. So the government of Barbados or the hospital will become separate, like how they remove sanitation and other entities from government books. They're going to implement taxation measures which will remove the QEH from the health budget, that it will be functional on its own. So it started with the implementation of the health 2.5% health levy that is charged at national insurance. It started with that. That is the first big to privatization, much like what they did with the sewage tax and British Water Authority. You see it now from the health side. The 2% health levy is to get the hospital to be self-funded. So
Mm-hmm.
that is the test run, and probably in the budget that is coming up, you will see more health measures in terms of getting the hospital to be more. That's what the Prime Minister probably drawn on Davidson Ishmael's talent as a management trained person or specialist.
He has
Uh,
talent.
be, well, that's part of his CV. I just repeating what was
Oh,
on the CV.
oh, it was just jumped me there.
Right.
It just,
But on, but that's probably what she's drawing on his management background. um, Help to change the entire management structure of the hospital to become a more privately run and oriented hospital service. Right? So it's going to be a paid pay as you go service. So the government will not be doing it universal anymore. Right? So probably the people on welfare could get free health care. So eventually it's going to be like a ticket system, no, not a ticket, the digital ID system. That if you don't have the digital ID, you don't have to pay for all services at the QH. Right? Then the next step will be that those who have the digital ID, the government will subtract it from your bank account when you pin it, when you go to the QH. So it will no longer be free um, up front. So if you don't have the ID, you don't get here at all. If you don't have the ID, it ain't free, but it will come off on subsidy, will come off on your card, your digital ID card, and you can swipe and go and use it. It would be free probably to you experiencing the care, but it will still be a
Mm-hmm.
paid transaction on your card. Right? So that is where healthcare through the IMF and the implementation of these systems is really heading in Barbados.
Mm-hmm. 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 Interesting, interesting. I know that this came up a couple times in the chat. Thank you, Kimar, for your comment there. Before any of the others jump in, Ms. McLean or Caswell, let me just say again to people who are watching, those of you who are watching, one of the things that I believe we should not do, we should not politicize healthcare. We should not. It should not become partisan. It should not be something that we just, we find fault with everything and we're trying to blame everybody for. I believe this is something that I believe that we have the answers to what we need to do. We had some brilliant suggestions from Maxine McLean from Caswell. They are Barbadians right here on the show, and you have ideas as well. If you are serious, if you're serious and you are ready to work, you're ready to put in some time and some hours, you're ready to get going, please give us a call at the number that's there, 236 7000, if you're ready. If you're in the diaspora and this is a topic that you believe that you can be part of a panel, you work in healthcare administration, that kind of thing, also contact me. I'm very serious, guys, about this. We can make a difference. It's more than just talk. All right. I believe we can make a difference. Contact me again. It's 236 7000. If you're serious about being on a panel, not to regurgitate everything that's wrong here. We know what's wrong. You know that we're going to really begin to do some discussions. All right. I think that would be great. Miss McLean or
Yeah, right.
Mr. Franklin, any thoughts
If,
on
if
this
I
issue
could,
here? But
if I could, and I just want quickly to, before I comment about some of what Kimara said, well, I just want to suggest that he's been very generous to Davis and Ishmael. I know the young man's qualifications, but I think Mr. Ishmael was demoted, and they needed to find somebody to go to the hospital because um,
Sonia left.
Sonia left out of frustration. Dr. Walcott, Mr. Walcott, fine
you
surgeon
said
that
Sonia
he
left out of frustration. You said that that's
frustration.
loaded.
Well, let me
Explain.
let me explain my interpretation. I never spoke to her, but I observe. And part of my training is to observe and draw conclusions. Um, Doctor Brown was put in charge of the hospital. She's not the minister of health. She's a minister in rather than the minister of.
Mm-hmm.
The minister has been missing in action, but in all fairness to him, recently I was told that he was on sick leave. So I will be kind to Mr. Walcott. And I call him Mr. Walcott because when you're elevated as a doctor, he's a surgeon. Uh, has I don't know, he's not practicing now, so I would say he had a fine reputation as a surgeon. I must say, though, that this second iteration as Minister of Health is as lackluster or as poor as when he was previously. And I would tell him that myself. I know he would probably tell me some choice words, but that's okay. I can handle that. The reality is that his tenure as Minister of Health has not been stellar, and it was not before. And as I said, I think he has been on sick leave or leave of some kind, and so they need somebody there. But I don't know that the generic training of I mean, as somebody who taught management, um, I would say that the you can transfer knowledge and you can through critical thinking and so on. But I would also say this from my observation, and I mentioned before that I was involved in the decision to hire Dr. Um,
James.
Dr. James. Healthcare management is a very serious thing, especially when you are talking about running a country's single tertiary care institution, public institution. So Mr. Ishmael going in there, he can learn a lot. I think he's a bright young man. He worked at my credit union for a little bit. Um, I think he's um, got potential, but he can't go in and hit the ground running because I don't think he has a clue as to how. I mean, and I'm serious. Running an institution like this, he can go in there, but to support a minister who is a novice, who is new, requires the substantial support of a good um, board of directors and so on. Um, the chairman I know from my credit union days, so I will let Caswell Caswell probably knows who the chairman is.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that like the young minister, the chairman, and those people, I don't know the rest of the board, will be learning. So the worry is that right now, as Pedro is saying, who manages the health care, the board is selected by I presume by the cabinet. What I can tell you is that in some over the years, you've had some situations where a minister may recommend certain people, but they also, if you look at the act in relation to the hospital, those speaks to the composition of the board of the hospital. You have certain positions identified, if I remember correctly. Caswell, you can correct me if I'm wrong,
No,
but
you're correct.
I think the board, the legislation under which the hospital operates as a statutory corporation, um, says that. The other thing I will say this: a lot of people talk about ministers um, knowing about the ministry, but I would say that it is it is a difficult task to put a doctor to run the hospital, a doctor who has to go and speak and manage his or her peers, some of them way senior than them, and so on. I don't think, I mean, they know about medicine, but that does not mean that they know how to manage their colleagues. And professionals like doctors, for example, are difficult to manage. But that is one of the things. But I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. I want to talk about the health levy, um and the whole trust to
Okay,
privatize
before you go
healthcare.
to the health levy, let's deal with this issue here on, since you mentioned about the Minister of Health and people are asking. Let's deal with
The
this and then we will
minister, the
move on.
minister of health, not well, the minister, she was minister responsible for the hospital. Caswell can pull up the correct title. The minister of health is Jerome Walker, Senator Jerome Walker.
Yeah, so I'm
She
saying
was, she was,
if he's not well, we have not, this is a very
that is,
crucial
that is,
ministry and we have
that
not
will,
heard
yes.
anything.
I don't know if it's a short,
Yeah.
how short his sick leave is or whatever. But the reality is that with two persons there, I guess, but the truth is that the hospital, their whole set of issues, a lot of them that were tackled, or so we thought, that have been allowed to fall back. We had a, you see, one of the things that we have to be careful about is, and this is something that I find that this administration likes to do, and I would hazard a guess to say this political party when in office, because when I look at education and the money that they spent on St. Leonard's School and that kind of thing, but a lot of money was spent to expand or do something to the accident and emergency. And after spending millions of dollars, if I am correct, I would have to say, I would have to check. Recently, after spending millions of dollars, the full extension was not operational. And the question, therefore, is how was that money spent? It took me. I mean, this is large in comparison to what happened at the school the other day. But you have a problem at St. John's Primary School. You build a temporary thing at another school, Mount Tabor, I think it is, and somebody crashes through the flooring, and they say the boy must be too fat. Now that somebody was suggesting maybe the janitor was too heavy. All it meant was that poor work was done. And I know they brought in an engineer from an engineering firm, and he did his report, and we heard him on the radio and so on, and corrective action supposed to be taken. However, this person might have been injured. What I'm saying is that there seems to be too much reworking, whether it is physical reworking of construction work or reworking of policies, of laws, and everything. In other words, my concern, and we can't afford to have this in healthcare. I mean, we can't afford to have it in education with children taking tests and then telling us that it was a mistake. When I know from my research that it was no mistake. But that's another story for another time. I've been there and I'll go back there.
Okay.
So my concern is that you're spending a lot of money in a situation where money is supposed to be scarce. And where improvements were expected. Far from improvements, we seem to have slipped back further in some respects, and A&E is one of those things. Because we heard of, can't remember, it was 13. I don't know. Um, you might be able to tell us, Kimara, how much money was spent on the A&E. I don't know if it's 30 something million or 14. I don't remember. I would have to do the research again. But we are spending all of this money, and then we are collecting a levy. Now, from my
Miss McLean, hold on the levy. I want to hear Mr. Franklin is gone.
Can you come back
Oh,
shortly?
come back because we want to deal with. I want to kind of deal with it in parts.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to deal because we announced that we're going to talk about the Minister of Health that we're not hearing from, and we have not heard anything official from the Minister of Health. We're seeing.
Mhm.
Right. So I wanted to hear Caswell just to talk about that a bit before we continue.
Okay, before we go on, let
But
me just say something though about ministers. I have noticed a trend that has been evident in this under this administration. You do not hear who's acting for whom. You do not hear when ministers go off on assignments. Well, I mean, I don't know how, we hear sometimes of the prime minister's travels and so on, but normally when a minister travels, somebody is made to act, and that information used to be
and
shared with the
we
government
have not heard that.
service.
But
We don't
definitely
hear
not
that.
heard that.
So we are not hearing that at all. We don't know where they're going. And except for the prime minister, ministers travel and come back, we hardly ever hear. I mean, recently I heard the minister of tourism speaking of an award that was given to I think the BTMI. This was in the news this weekend, but you generally don't hear
So
now,
here,
and it's important that we hear also because
here.
something
Let
has
me hear
happened.
Kimar. Kimar, do you have
Okay.
any thoughts on that? Caswell isn't here, and we heard Miss McLean's her thoughts on it. The Minister of Health, just missing in our minds. We are now being told, unofficially, that he might not be well. We don't know, and if he's not well, we want to wish him all the very best. But as someone
Let me just, because I heard he's on leave, on sick leave or something. Well, some kind of leave. So I
Okay, so
don't.
we don't know. That's the thing about it. We
Right.
just
So,
don't know.
mhm. So we
Do
want to
you,
know.
yeah,
Mhm.
what are your thoughts about this, Kimar? Just before Mr. Caswell Franklin give his thoughts.
Yeah, well, my thing here is that when Dr. Dennis Law ill,
There's an echo. There's an echo, Kimar. Oh, it's me.
yeah, no, well, it seems to be everybody.
I am muted again. I muted and mute again.
Wait, good now?
Hello. Yes.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, right. When Dr. Dennis Law was ill, Dr. Dennis Law was vilified in Barbados for being missing from his ministry at that time, right? And Law was attacked by the Barbados party over and over and over, being ill and in the hospital, and nobody felt for him, right? Nobody felt for Dr. Law at the time. We're fine human beings and we're not going to any extremes. If a man is ill, he's ill. We need a the leader of the country. Yeah, well, the Minister of Health is on leave, and it needs to be published that he's on leave. Much like when the Prime Minister is supposed to be leaving the country, they're supposed to announce who's supposed to be the acting Prime Minister. If the President is not here, they will announce the acting President, right? But we are not hearing that, right? We should have been told that the Minister, if it is true that he left the island to have a procedure performed, we should have been told that the Minister of Health is not in his substantive post at the time, and therefore X person is acting. They didn't have to tell us that what is going on in his private life. But I think for a ministry as critical as health, if you had to leave, you're the Minister of Health, and you had to leave Barbados to go and get a procedure done. That should say something about the healthcare state of healthcare in Barbados, right? That should say that we need to upgrade the level of services Barbados has. That at least the Minister of Health, if he's ill, to stay in Barbados and be treated. He doesn't have to leave the island to be missing to be treated, right? So there's a lesson to be learned here, right? We need serious attention paid to the hospital. We need account and all of the monies that was collected from the health facility. We need an account for all of the money that was spent on the hospital during COVID, right? The Minister of Health is not here to give us that explanation. The person who gave him the job in the Senate of Barbados, which is the Prime Minister, who's really the Minister of Health, she to give account for what's happening with the health ministry and not put a person in the ministry because the minister in the ministry has no say. He still has
That,
to
that
go
would
to
have
the
been
ministers.
Sonia Brown. That would have been Sonia Brown.
Yeah, but she still had no say. The substantive minister still has to sign off on any orders or any procedures. That person did not have the power to pay. David Sir Ishmael will not have the power to pay. He still has to go to the minister. If the minister is not in the post, that means nothing still cannot be done to help the Ministry of Health. Right? So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Kimar. Mr. Franklin, I'm glad to see you're back there. You were in and out, in and out. So I'm glad you're back. What are your thoughts about this situation where we, as we've been discussing, we don't know, we just haven't heard from the Minister of Health in months, and then to some people are saying that that was the pressure of, that Sonia Brown, Dr. Sonia Brown, probably doing the work and taking the flak for everything, and probably she got frustrated and left. We don't know. But what are your thoughts about all of it?
No, she didn't get frustrated with doing the work and not getting the thing. She got frustrated with Zoom meetings when the prime minister.
Okay, the volume has gone down. Somebody's saying, what is going on here with us?
I
Can you
really
all
don't
hear?
know. Just now we had some issues. I wasn't hearing anybody at all, so I don't know what's happening. So that's why I had to be in and out, in and out. I wasn't hearing any of
Okay,
you,
yeah,
right?
go ahead.
So I'm hoping that you hear me now. So when the Bronx get tired of Zoom meetings at 2 o'clock in the morning because they tell me the prime minister in her different time zones want to hold meetings in Barbados because she's already running the place by Zoom.
Say that again. Man, you're going a mile a minute. I can't understand.
No, I said Sonia most likely got vexed because she get tired being summoned to meetings at 2 o'clock in the morning because that's the time when the prime minister is available. Because she's already running this country by Zoom. That is the
Mm.
problem. Because when you hear she talking about these things at the press conference, she's doing it already.
Okay, let's
She, she,
adjust the
she is
volume. Hold a minute. I hate to disrupt you, but we want to make sure that we are hearing. Is everybody hearing? Are you hearing? Can you hear me now? Kimar say something.
I can, but Caswell may need to adjust his mic towards his mouth. I think he's. We
I
were
can hear
looking
you
at you
very well.
talking. Yeah, I
no,
can hear.
I'm kissing it now.
I can hear him very good.
I was saying that the Sonia Brown most likely got tired having to go to meetings at work, but she back at 2 o'clock to accommodate them by Mrs. who lives in different time zones. To so when it is 3 o'clock for her, the day might be 2 o'clock. You know that somebody else here, and she got tired of that kind of thing, right? Also, she would have been acting minister. Senator Walcott, he had an issue, and people were quite unkind to him because he didn't get. So we had some person to do the surgery in Barbados and everything. The person who is our specialist in Barbados is who actually recommend that he go overseas to get the surgery because it was a bit difficult to get it done here, and with the facilities that we had, he had a problem with his arm. So my concern though was that yes, it wouldn't, the injury couldn't spread from his arm to his mouth, so he should still be able to talk. And and that is what I'm concerned about because if you are um can't write, you can't drive because I see he was being driven. I saw him on occasion where he had a chauffeur and everything, but that doesn't stop him from talking. You know, and listening and understanding, and then if you get the personal assistant to take notes for him if he can take the notes, but something has to give, because Dr. Brown is too genteel for that job. She's a lady, and she's a lady who couldn't stand the prime minister. I was wondering what she was doing in there in the first place, because she was the only one of them that was standing up to her. So I suspect the prime minister tried to silence her and give her the job in the ministry, but without any teeth. You know, a minister in the ministry ain't got no teeth, as Keith Mark quite rightly said. You know, you're just a glorified parliamentary secretary. You still got to do everything through the prime minister or the minister, depending upon which ministry you're in. You know, so having all these ministers is just a bit that gives a person the extra money, but then really gets to do the work. The hospital, Ministry of Health, is too important to be relegated to a minister who is on sick leave and a person who can get ID cards out. You know, because I remember he was saying, oh, there were technical issues with the Trident ID. That's why we have to push it back. The technical issue that he found was that they didn't have any more cards, according to the Prime Minister, not me. Because the next day, Prime Minister came and said that they were on the cards. So somebody like that, you don't really want to put them in a major ministry, because what are we going to do with him there? He cannot handle mundane stuff. He can't handle health. I'm very sorry, but that is, I don't mean to criticize the young man, but he is, again, one of those people who is out of his depth. His feet is not on the sand and the water is over his head. And that is the situation with him and the Ministry of Health. Sorry, Marcel, let you know I'm taking notes. You see, I don't want to. Kmart talk about mental health services, and that sounds nice, but they don't really practice it. All right. We recently had a young lady who had some psychiatric issues, a nurse at the hospital. And she went and she got treatment at the mental and stuff, but the psychiatric hospital, they call it these days. And the psychiatric hospital doctor signed off on a document and said, well, okay, now she's fit to resume work. Hospital won't take her back as late as last week. And that is what comes. So when they're talking about health, psychiatric care, mental health care, and that kind of stuff, they're giving it lip service because the government does not even want to take back its own people who are ill. And psychiatric illness is just an illness. It is not a death sentence, and it can be managed, and it is managed. So I want the government to rethink, instead of using buzzwords and talk about mental health issues and mental health services and that kind of thing, actually deal with the patients and not talking nonsense. Because the lady is fully trained. She went to community college. She is a registered nurse, but she got ill. You can get ill too. And they refused to restore her to her job at the QH. Oh, as late as last week, they refused to take her in. I asked her to go and speak to the people. And she come and tell me that she spoke to Mr. Whitehall and the PHR, and they said that tell her look for some place else to work. Yeah, that's what she told me on Friday. So while they're talking about these issues, they're giving lip service to them. And at the same time, we have Barbados who are competent and capable of work. So says her doctor. Because let me tell you something. When you get ill, a doctor, a registered medical practitioner in Barbados says you are fit to resume work. And that is enough for any employer. You don't need anything more. Mind you, I hear some employers telling people, oh, I want you to go to my doctor. Nonsense. It's against the law in Barbados right now. The act was passed in 2021. It is called the Employment Prevention of Discrimination Act. You can't ask a person about his health to retain a job or to get one unless it is a situation where you're doing something like food handling. Then you can ask, because you need to find out if a fellow is healthy enough to deal with your food. Except in situations like that, it is an offense to ask people about their health in Barbados. It's in the law, Section 6 of the Employment Prevention and Discrimination Act. Mind you, this government allowed employers and encouraged employers to tell people if they don't take you know what, that they can't come to work at my place.
Yeah.
And several hotels did it, and some of those people got sick. I know the Attorney General looked me in the face one day at a meeting and told me that the government got no liability, and that's when they lost it because they don't
Yeah.
usually lose it. But
Yeah.
so we have a lot of issues in health. I like to get down to the nitty gritty, the ones that actually affect people. Marcia, you said that we don't want to politicize healthcare, and I wrote when you said that ship's already sailed because this government politicized it from the time they came into office. One of the things they did was to fast track Dexter James out of the job. When he was doing a good job, when he was pulling the hospital around. But you know why they couldn't keep him? Because he was employed under the Dems. And so you see, it is political already. Everything in Barbados when it comes to this thing is political. You're charging people for offenses, and you charge the damn teachers, and you wouldn't charge your own people until I make noise.
Yeah.
That is the situation in this country. Everything is politicized. So what we have to do is to stay above the politics. But yet still, the actual running of the institutions, you can't get a job unless you know somebody or you know somebody that knows somebody in politics. And if you are a good doctor and you don't got no political connections, you don't get the job. If you're a good nurse, if you're a good cleaner, every job that passes through the hospital, somebody has to sign off on it outside. Even taking care of old people, you got to go and get a letter from your MP to say that you're a good B.
Yeah. Well, time. Thank you, Caswell, for that clarification. And time is running away from us, and I advertised so many things that we're going to talk about. So, can we have one last comment from Ms. McLean about the healthcare, and then we will just have to run through some of the other topics and give Kimara a chance to speak on those. Go ahead, Ms.
Yeah, very quickly, I just wanted to comment about the whole business of financing, because I think Kimar mentioned the march towards privatization, but before we even get there, there's a lack of transparency which we need to, and I'm talking about the hospital and other things. We know when our local Rihanna has contributed. We heard what she contributed. She did a presentation and everything. Rumor has it that the facility in St. Lucie, which was built to, retrofitted and all that for COVID, was financed by an expatriate of dubious, well, I would like to know who he is and where he is now. And if that is the case, let us know how that was financed, because I don't think that we should be having integrity legislation where individuals are asked to declare sums of money above $2,500 and persons giving monies to institution. The other point I want to make quickly is that with that 2.5% levy, it is my understanding that the level of funding generated by it is probably significantly more than government anticipated, but yet there is no reporting and accounting for those funds. So the issue of financing of healthcare is another topic for another time, perhaps.
Maxine, I don't want to cut you, but I want to help you
I
there
stopped.
by telling you
I finished.
that somebody.
Right, so let's spend about 2 more minutes on it, Caswell.
They had a site visit.
Okay, too low. Go a little closer to the mic. I don't know the mic. Can you?
They had a site visit to sell that facility in St. Lucie. People actually went and look at it already, and they're talking about COVID and research and all kind of stuff. And if you sell it, you can buy it back from the people. If it's this government looking for too much money, and they will sell they will sell the family silver, but people actually went and check it out already. That is my information.
Oh my goodness, Thank you. We need to have a show just dealing with the financing, right? And looking at that in terms of transparency, accountability, etc. But I had on here, Kimar, are you still there?
Yeah, here.
Okay. Right. Okay. So we have sometimes I think sometimes I have too many things on the show, but we're gonna continue. I promise you. I believe that every evening we need to do something on healthcare because it's so big. It's it is really a big issue. We have even leprosy. The same we have leprosy. Kimar, this thing with this there's another IDB loan, and I just want you to make a comment on that. And then we go to the next topic we want to look at is the spiritual advisors. I want us to touch that. But go ahead, Kimar, this IDB loan, there's another one.
Yeah, you could you repeat that ID? I not clear.
IDB
IDB
loan.
loan.
I think
Barbados
Oh,
gets 50 million IDB loan.
well,
25
most of
million
these.
US.
No, they got here 50 million.
Well,
50 US million.
what's it for?
Let me open up the
climate
thing here.
change.
Ca- This is the new ministry that the Prime Minister created in her office for climate change.
In her office.
Yeah, she said it in the last press conference that she and Chantal, she said, well, I'm the minister responsible for climate change. And Chantal works in my office in the area of climate change as well. So she's now the minister of climate change too.
Oh my God. So I really wonder how this 50 million is going to be spent. That's quite interesting.
Well, I
Oh,
don't I don't know, but I will let somebody to show me anything that was built in Barbados under the auspices of climate change. You you show me a building that was built in the name of climate change. Show me a riffraff. Show me something that was built in the name of climate change.
I can show
But
ambassador.
but still but still monies are being spent in the name of climate change. But nobody can see the money just changing climate from one climate to the other climate and then into somebody's pocket maybe. Right? This is serious. The IDB Barbados owes over $1 billion, in loans specifically to the IDB. The IDB is the biggest creditor type. Right? They continue to lend us money in the name of climate change. The Prime Minister created a new ministry just to handle this money. And this is getting absurd. No, because the healthcare system in Barbados rotting away, right? They still have to borrow another $600 million to fulfill the Jobby Water. Right? This is all part of the IMF, this resilience and sustainability fund that we spoke about on the show.
mm-hmm.
So all of this is money that was accessed through the new IMF program. It just seems that they're just borrowing the money because the money is there to be borrowed.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And
This one here, it says the loan has a 23.5-year repayment term, a 7-year grace period, and an interest rate based on the secured overnight financing rate. In the press release issued 11th of January 2024 by the IDB, the lending agency said the operation approved by the IDB board of executive directors will reduce the risk of erosion and flooding along the country's coast and make coastal activities safer for communities and tourists. It will also enhance community living standards and tourism value by improving access for people with disabilities and women. That sounds good, man. Make it look like women can't go to the beach.
well, this concretes my point that I made before. The way Chantel Marona is being put in that climate change area, and that is why they want to get rid of Ralph Tarn to Christchurch South because they want control over Oistins. Right? Don't forget that they are investing heavily in Oistins, casual. Right?
I
And
know.
so that is why they want Christchurch South where Oistins is at. Why they want the city of Bridgetown, where Queen is at. The Ministry of Environment is interconnected with the same climate change agenda. Right? Why Corleone is being put as the acting Minister of Environment, controls the city of Bridgetown. So that is more climate money to be flowing through his ministry. Right now they're working in St. Peter, where you see the new Six Mains Hotel, and so that's where they're gonna probably soon get rid of Colin Jordan. Right?
Well, that would be a good thing, though. I've been getting rid of Colin Jordan.
Right? But I've started I've started point here though is that they are going to put people who have backgrounds in some of these areas, disaster management, climate resilience, right? Because they're actually investing in education for in these areas to come back and fill slots because don't forget that Barbados is supposed to be the new climate champion of the world. But a climate, obviously, you have to have people around, human resources to do the job, right? So they get their specialist people, put them in places and to control strategic areas. So stays Miami Beach, remember Miami Beach, where the post office is, they're selling that to build a hotel, right? Stays. So Barbados is going to look so different. Barbados is going to look so different in a couple of years that the entire place is going to be sold to foreign investors, and the entire architecture of all of our cities, Oystains, Bridgestone, and Spikestone, are going to look substantially different in a couple of years' time.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Franklin, you were saying something there about this $50 million. So climate change. Somebody's saying why climate change affects or health. Climate change affect school. Why don't they use some of that money and work on the hospital and so on. What are your thoughts, Mr. Franklin?
No, I saw the article today and I was reading. That's why I was able to pull it up and read for you. It is a crock. It is a way to borrow some money and come up with and not to give reasons, make it sound fanciful, because they said that they can build grounds in the sea and all kind of nonsense. This it isn't anything that we don't know how to do, or we haven't been doing. It is just, and it says here like the coastline is also highly valuable for community fisheries and international logistics, but it's threatened by challenges such as declining coral reefs. The declining coral reefs because the government put those big ships out there during COVID and allow them to anchor in the coral reef and destroy acres and acres of coral reef. I know they're so giving the impression that they're gonna do this to fix the coral reef and all kind of nonsense. These people are just ridiculously and I don't want to call them that liars or anything like that because I tried calling them so they don't listen. But this is just a ruse even the scenarios that they used for the funding agency doesn't ring true. It's just that they want when came out could talk about that because the one with the Ryan Strong who said that this committee met and stuff. They're always trying to find ways to get money, and that's the problem. Or you mentioned Colin Jordan, and I want to say to you that he is in the same court, St. Peter, and they're just trying to destroy Six Men, and he came up on the side saying, no, we can protect the Philistine village and all kinds. So that's true. They were trying to get those people from there for the longest time, and they're excluding them from the society basically because they want to have that coastal area allocated to them. They can build a fish market. I bet you not build it in the area where the best suited or where the men are now. Mind you. Oh, and by the way, sorry, this is just another one. Because Marcy said we're going to go into the thing with spiritual advisors. He is the minister responsible for ecclesiastical affairs, and they had to get two spiritual advisors to help him. Because you know what we're doing, but that's by the way.
Well, we have only what? We only have a couple minutes left, and it's the second night I try to deal with this issue. We only have 10 minutes. These spiritual advisors, which for me, it's a little strange because we know that with this government is seeking to make Barbados a secular society. That is the kind of language that I would have heard. When I remember when we went to the Constitution review and so on, and this is what the general feel is that we need to um, be be a secular society, and also they push a lot of multi faith. I mean, there we have the Muslims, we have Rastafari, we have so it's kind of very very odd to me that the government would put two spiritual advisors, and these advisors are from the Christian church. Because this is the same prime minister who said that you can say, God could be a woman, and I can't remember exact quote. I'm just paraphrasing. And it's whatever that kind of thinking. And from my understanding, the prime minister herself is not of the Christian faith. So I don't understand why two pastors would be chosen. And also think about this, that these pastors are not chosen from the Anglican or Catholic. These are evangelical pastors. And so you want to know what is this really all about. I was hoping it is real, but the more I move away from it and I look at it, I'm thinking if we're really this kind of government, I would have expected a Rastafari could have been on the spiritual advisory committee. I mean, as a spiritual advisor, or you could have had a Muslim because they're very close to the Muslim community. What about the Hindus? Why two Christians from the evangelical church? That's my question out there, and I think you can say,
Or those fellas have to get a salary. You all right? That's what it's all
I didn't hear
about.
you.
They have to get a salary. You that's what it's all about. This finding a way to get a stipend or a salary, whatever you feel like calling it. This ain't got nothing to do about no spiritual advisors. These people want to take God out the constitution and want spiritual advisors. These people who talking about LGBTQ don't want spiritual advisors. No, they want to find um a, a way of rewarding what some of their people and give. I expected them to have a spiritual advisor was going to get the fellow from St. Lucie who preached at this service, but I was surprised when I heard it was somebody else because that is what they do. They buy people. This has got nothing to do. And these people they're ungodly lot. And this has got nothing to do with God or spiritual advisors. Look, you remember they brought these spiritualists from Africa who come to one year so, and we got all kind of people here, and they brought spiritualists into Queen's Park, and I don't know what people were telling me. Oh no, these African spiritualists and all kind of stuff. I don't know what they're talking about. We got enough spiritual advisors in Barbados. We have this culture or habit once. When as soon as the crop came, we used to get American evangelists coming out here to carry all the crop money and that kind of stuff. And no, I don't. That wasn't the crop, but they bring some African people down here. Know what to bring the carry there. They're always rushing in with some nonsense to distract people. Even the Democratic Labour Party people get distracted. But I saw the young lady, what's her name,
Felicia
Senate
Dujon.
Dujon, Senate president. I said, Lord, she got tricked. It is no, 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 no. Anytime at all you see this administration doing anything, there's always an ulterior motive. They don't want the spiritual advice. They got some of their Adventist minister in their cabinet. They want spiritual advice to talk to him.
Yeah.
But the must be you know, but why do you want, and he's also the minister responsible for ecclesiastical affairs. If they want somebody to say prayers at their cabinet meetings or whatever they're going to do, or tell them that they're doing wrong, well, Marcia, you could be special advisor. You've been telling them they're doing wrong for the longest time. You know, and I think that it has to do with finding a way to give somebody a little berry. I don't know if the body got a bill house or they need a car or whatever it is, but they got to stop this nonsense because the government money does not belong to Mayor Motley. She's always finding a way to spend it. She tried to spend some on me. Mind you, I need the money, but I don't need it that
Yeah.
badly.
Let me hear, Kimar, what are your thoughts about that? The spiritual advisors, the DLP third vice president seem to think that this is a good move. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, somebody who openly supports Port Francis. I remember seeing the Prime Minister putting up Port Francis report, said her face and quoted from the port.
Correct.
I would have thought that she would have got up by Catholic things first. Second, in a crisis like this, I ain't sure that they really need spiritual advisors. I think they more need psychologists. So
No.
they should have appointed
Exorcist.
they appointed a chief exorcist and a chief psychologist to work for the cabinet. But honestly, in a time like this, um, well, spiritual guidance is necessary. I'm sure that the church, as a collective body, would have provided that spiritual guidance to the Prime Minister if need be. I remember the Prime Minister going into the church over on Country Road. Pastor was down anointing her feet and rubbing her feet, and so I'm
That's when
saying
it
that
was
she.
swollen. That's when it was swollen. He was
Oh,
praying for it. Remember when she went to Canada and she couldn't get her foot in the shoe? You remember that part for the
Yes,
one?
ma'am. Go ahead, Kiba.
yeah. So I'm saying that spiritual advice was readily available for free. This is a Christian country, and the Prime Minister could walk in any church at any denomination and get spiritual guidance. Right? You have John Rogers as a senator, right? He could have done it. So I'm saying that for a party that has so many church services, has so many pastors around preaching, um, you could have taken any of them and want to get spiritual advice, but it speaks to a deeper issue where if the cabinet feels that it is so immoral that it had to go to seek repentance in terms of appointing spiritual advisors, then it points to the deeper issue. So that is why my recommendation for psychologists and a chief psychologist comes in, because a psychologist could be able to relate to them in first person, second person, third person, all of the deeper end traumas that are causing them to make the serious mistakes that they are making to destroy this country.
Mhm,
Right?
mhm.
So they need psychiatrists, right? Each one of them should go to have like a 2 hour psychology class that they go and sit with the psychologist to have therapy to understand exactly what they're involved in. And maybe that could help some of the ministers to see life more clear and to recognize that the policies that they're actively supporting on a daily are actually destroying the country. And I just hope my recommendation could help in some way.
Yeah. Miss McLean, what are I know you're a spiritual person as well, but what are your thoughts? Your third vice president, I'm putting sorry, I should not do that because you don't come on here in that capacity. So I take that back,
Go
ma'am.
ahead.
But what are your thoughts about the spiritual advisors in a country that has we have a lot of different religions and one would have expected just curious. I'm
No,
just
but
curious.
Well, I suppose advisors are there to advise on the basis of who needs advice. So I don't know that you would, as an Anglican, as a Christian, if I wanted spiritual advice, I couldn't go to a Muslim or a Hindu pundit. But as to whether they need advisors, they probably do. And the question is where they can find them. What I would like to find out after the fact is how many people have sought the advice of the advisors and to what effect. You know,
It ain't working.
I think as a person, as a practicing Christian, and I did go to church this morning, so I have to behave as I, if I want advice, I would go seek it from those within my church, if you see what I mean. As was pointed out, you have Father Rogers. I am not sure. I believe, though, that I've heard both gentlemen preach in different circumstances. And I'm not sure. They may very well be counselors as well. For example, if I needed counseling, I would seek out the support of or the assistance of somebody like Reverend Dr. Marcus Lashley, because he's a psychologist by training, and deals with particular areas of psychology. But I trust that they're taking it seriously and it is not some other kind of gimmick. As I said, I know of the two priests, but I don't know what motivated the Prime Minister to do that. Sometimes these things are done for window dressing, and I trust that the two priests are not caught up in such a situation. But I would say before you get advisors, go church or go to where those people would be found,
Yeah.
and perhaps that might help you a bit. But I don't know, and I don't want to get into the domain of people's personal religious persuasions or whatever. But I just find it just let me just say what thinking. It just strikes me as another one of those things that falls under the category of gimmickry. And I am sure the gentlemen have taken it on in this in seriously in the spirit of their training and advocation and their vocation and so on. But I wait to hear whether or not anybody seeks the advice. Maybe the Prime Minister feels that she needs it with all that she's been doing and so on. But I don't want to be cynical about things spiritual, but I am cynical about the appointments or the rationale, and I'm wait to hear that. But and I also am very curious to hear the impact that the advisors have and whether their advice, as I said before, is solicited. And I wish them well. I have no reason to question the integrity of the two gentlemen, but I question why and why no. And I also would like to see the effect. Um, you know.
Look, she brought her African spiritualist here. If she wanted to consult them, she could go on Zoom, like she planned to try to run this country. Then too far, call up her African spiritualist on Zoom. There is more in the mortar than the pestle. There is something wrong in this. I don't
I'm
believe.
looking at Andrea Critchell's comments, and let me put it this way. I was trying to find the words, but I think that Andrea is helping me. Prime Minister Motley is always on a political campaign. You understand? I anticipate that while it is highly unlikely that she will have an election under 4.5 years, because 3.5 and 4.5 make up 8, and that's the minimum unless the laws are changed to allow people who are new to get their pensions. I anticipate that we will have soon a by-election where we may have one or multiple candidates. And part of that appeal, as Andrew said, there are a lot of Barbadians. Marcia, you're part of organizations where people are Christian in their orientation, their practice, and so on. You're part of a Christian community. You yourself you're a highly spiritual person and so on. And I think that there is a sense, and maybe she's looking at what's going on in the US where the so-called although I find the whites in America, a lot of them are very Christian in their behavior, but this religious right carries a lot of clout, and perhaps she is reading the
Yeah,
tea leaves in Barbados. So I'm leaving the
I'm
gentlemen,
thinking.
the
I'm
men of
thinking
God,
so.
as the
I'm thinking.
Africans like to describe them. I mean, our priests. I put them aside
Mhm.
because I have respect for both of them, and I don't question their motives. But I would say that I think this is part of a campaign and a profiling. And as a marketer, somebody who is trained in marketing and who's trained several people I see around here practicing marketing full time and doing pretty well, I think this is part of a marketing campaign, which will ultimately roll out into a by election within the next 4 months maximum outer limit.
Out of it. Well, let as we're closing tonight, let me just say that we can't pass any aspersion. We can't make any. We can't say that the entire parliament is immoral because we don't know about everybody in there.
We
We
can't
can't
say it
say
about
that the
anybody.
entire yeah, we can't say that the Senate is immoral. We might have, yes, we see acts there of different people, but we can't blanket and say, okay, the Senate is immoral or the Parliament is immoral. So let's just make that very clear. We are speaking about what we are seeing happening in Barbados at this time with these two spiritual advisors who are men who seem to be noble people, but we don't know if they're caught up into a media campaign, and what is it that they want from the church. I am just, as a church person, I am making that observation that it's
So,
not an Anglican and it's not a Catholic, it's evangelicals that have been
so
talking about
What is
LGBTQ,
not one of
talking
them
about
a Moravian?
treatment.
Isn't
Yes,
one of them a
but we
Moravian?
can
Marcia,
Yes,
Marcia,
yes.
one is a Moravian priest.
it,
yes,
You
but
know,
isn't that evangelical as well?
not in the strictest definition of evangelical. I don't think so. I think Moravian falls into the category of Methodist, Catholic, Anglican, Moravian. Those are the four kinds of traditional Christian
I
churches
thought
that they've
Methodist
got
was
around here.
also evangelical, but I thought the Methodists were also evangelical. Probably not.
Not really. I mean,
All right.
as far as
Okay.
I'm
Well,
concerned, they're all Christian. They're all Christian denominations, and I really don't get too caught up in breaking it down. And
yeah, all of
and
that.
I I,
Anyway,
I
time
I
is
also
going.
would not want us to. Well, I made my point. I exclude them being asked to do
Yes.
something. They might have been asked the prime minister and which they are not a part. They've been asked to be advisors. That is not unusual as priests. And but as to why it is
Yeah.
happening,
Okay. Well,
they
we've
can't
all
tell
we've all
you.
made our points. It's
Mhm.
10:07, and we really need to close off. It's tomorrow. If we want to talk about it a bit more, we will talk about it a bit more. Caswell, can you invite the people out on Monday evening? Next week Sunday. I'm saying Monday. Next week Sunday at 5 to the Barrow event. And we're closing. 1 minute.
Errol Barrow was pivotal. He's probably the most significant person in the history of Barbados right now. And they are trying their best to make sure that his name is written off the books. Come out and learn about Barrow. Watch the Barrow movie because Barrow died in 87. And there are lots of people born after 1987. The only thing they know about Barrow is that he is the father of independence. That does not say anything. That does not, that's a little, they had George Washington was the father of the United States and that kind of nonsense. Come and find out what Barrow really did. Barrow is responsible for most of these young people who used to go out there and making good careers instead of picking upon grass on the plantation. Barrow made education a priority for people. Come out and support and make sure that this government does not extinguish the name of Barrow from the history of Barbados because that is what they are trying to do, you know? Because, and then you will be replaced by, oh, Motley, brought Barbados to Republican status. Republican status is not a big thing. The work was done by our Barrow. He took the colonialists off and ran the country. And the only thing that a republic is that you now have a president. That is the only thing. And everything else that we had under Barrow, we still have, except a president. So don't go away, but come out and learn about Barrow, and have a good time doing it. Learn not from what they're not teaching you in schools and what the politicians want to divide. Come and listen to Marcia Weeks, watch her show, watch her movie, and you will learn about Errol Barrow.
Thank you so much, Caswell. So we'll see you all tomorrow evening, and we're going to continue some of these issues. God bless you all. Have a good night. Thank you, Kimar. Thank you, Maxine. And thank you, Miss McLean, Mrs. McLean. And thank you, Mr. Friday. Thank you all very much.
Marcia,
God bless you.
Thank you very much for calling me Maxine finally. And I'm not Mrs. McLean. I tell you, if you call me Mrs., you have to bring the husband for me. I'm waiting.
Well, I know a fella. Don't worry. Marcia and I will get together. We will talk.
I hope that fella not drinking that tea. The tea that you said he drinking. I'm growing the breast. All right, bye-bye. Good night, Kivar. Bye-bye.